Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on social media at Galen Trombley. I hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Please hold for a very important message. Light speed sequence initiated. How may I help you?
Bonjour.
Security breach.
The truth shall set you free. Awesome. It's a miracle.
Stabilizing. 3, 2, 1. Mission complete.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Welcome everybody. Episode. This is a cool number. I just said about numbers when you came in. Sorry, this is like squirrel moment. But episode 222, so 222 of the Galen Trombley Show. My guest today, Alicia Blanchard. She's a sales manager at Plattco Corporations. And I just follow you a lot on LinkedIn. I see you a lot at a lot of places. I think you're out and about in the community quite a bit. Plattco, very reputable, long-standing company locally in the North Country. And I just, everything that you post about and talk about and things like that, I enjoy,
Thank you.
seeing and reading. And then I think I, selfishly can pick your brain on some stuff too. So I think you'll be good for many reasons, like I said. But that's kind of what drew me to want to really kind of sit down and talk to you. And but for people that don't know you, who are you? How did you get to where you are now? And
Perfect. So I've lived in Plattsburgh since I was 10. I was born here. We moved away. I lived in Nashua, New Hampshire until I was about 10 years old. Moved back here, but my mom's whole family is here, so we are planted pretty deeply here. My husband's family is all here. So the North Country, once it gets you, it kind of keeps the claws right in you. It's hard to leave. There's a lot to do here. It's a beautiful place, right? So there's all the different seasons. So it's a great place to be. As far as how did I get here? God, it's been a whirlwind. I originally was supposed to be actually a high school biology teacher. Went to Plattsburgh State. I actually ended up having my daughter that year. I was 19. I took my finals in college and I had her a week later. And so I did not go back, but I don't regret that decision because it's been a great journey since then. I joined customer service at Verizon Wireless as a greeter, believe it or not, for $10 an hour.
what year was this, roughly?
Oh, God, this was 2002. I was a temp employee for $10 an hour as a greeter at a station. Worked my way up into customer service, and then I went into sales. And then in about 2009, I actually transferred to AT&T. Worked as a sales associate there for about a year, became assistant manager, and then a year after that about 2 years after that, became the store manager.
Okay.
So,
and that's the one on Smithfield, same spot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It was the same spot. I actually created a great team there. I worked with Josh Walker. I don't know if you know who he was,
yes.
but yeah.
Yep.
So Josh and I actually managed the store together before he went to New Craft, and that's where I met Aaron Benner.
Yes.
So I've known Aaron since then. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the whole community kind of comes full circle because you meet all these great people. So management is really what I love. Leadership, building teams, building winning teams that really are passionate about what they do. So I knew management was for me. So once I became assistant manager, I just knew that was my forte. So stayed in management at AT&T until 2015. Retail gets to you after, 14 years of that was a lot. And then became the store manager at Periwinkle's Fine Jewelry. Did that for 5 years. Honestly, that's probably the funnest thing in the world to sell. But again,
Jewelry?
Jewelry.
Oh, okay.
So when you think about jewelry, everything around jewelry has a story. Everybody remembers why they bought their jewelry or received a piece of jewelry. There's always some sort of sentiment around it. So to be involved in all those beautiful stories was a lot of fun. Again, the retail world, though, is still hard to deal with when you have a family and all of those things. So there were a lot of times basically from Black Friday all the way up until New Year's.
I was just thinking Black Friday.
Yeah, Black Friday.
Evenings, weekends. Well, the thing, too, with cell phone companies, I go through AT&T, and they have late evening or late work hours.
Very late.
So, they're there till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And, I think selfishly when I was, I kind of got into real estate for the same reason because I didn't like the hours. And this was like, I was 20 at the time, but it was, the late hours looking out and being like, okay, I I'd rather be out and about in the evenings and kind of grind out my work and not have a set schedule. But so when you transitioned into like the managing style, the assistant manager, what drew you into that? Did you have stuff as like a child that like you think drew you in, or was this like a completely new frontier for you?
Yeah. So I kind of think it goes along with teaching. So I originally always wanted to be a teacher. Management is a combination of therapy and teaching. I feel like you're always there trying to help somebody. And for me, really developing people is what I enjoy. I love being there for them. Being a true leader to me is you work for your team. So making sure that their journey is successful, that's what I get my joy out of. It's not about me. It's really about making them shine. And I really enjoy that part of it. And that has never went away.
Did you experience that from day one? Was that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
So what was probably the biggest learning curve? Because you went from sales you said before to managing, or to like a manager position. Yep. What was the biggest jump that you had to do, or was there like a bigger paradigm shift or kind of an epiphany? Yeah,
so I think the biggest learning curve, the thing that I struggled with the most or had a lot to learn at first, was the disciplinary side. I don't love disciplining people. So you really got to look at it as the other way. So holding people accountable isn't always a bad thing, right? It's about coaching and developing them. And so when I first came into management, I was really scared about that part. But if you twist it into the way of, it's not about write-ups, it's not about, people getting in trouble, it's really about developing them, and that's what you focus on. It never feels like a punishment. It's really all about how you communicate, and I really had to learn that. So in my first year, I actually had went to my boss at AT&T, and I asked if there were any development programs. And I got into every and all development programs I could, and really focused on that, how to coach and develop effectively without really cutting people's morale down, because that's really important. When you say, hey, so-and-so, could you come to my office? I really need to talk to you. People instantly are on a terrible alert, right? And it shouldn't be like that, because they should be looking forward to sitting down with you no matter what the situation.
So I think one of, and this is where I'm probably going to have a lot of questions for you and kind of see what you say on these. So I've gotten more from an agent perspective. I still do a lot of agents, sales and things, but on top of that, kind of thrust into the day-to-day of running the company. And I've been working on nonstop, I feel like, for, months and well over a year on just system overhaul and redoing processes and just kind of getting things to the point where I know they need to be going forward. Just kind of with technology and just the way that everything's evolving. And coupled on top of that is dealing with people. And, I didn't get into real estate to manage people. I didn't get into real estate to be in a leadership position. I got into real estate because I'm I wish I had a better, a more noble way of getting into real estate, but I was just I didn't want to work a set hours, and I was in college. So I didn't really I wasn't doing it for the right things when I got into real estate. But I think as things have grown, the leadership managing style has been kind of thrust on me, and it's been more of a necessity of just of growth.
It's part of it.
Yeah, instead of saying I really want to be a leader or a manager. So one of the things I've struggled with in that regard is I think I'm you always hear I think I'm good leading by example in certain things. Sure. I'm not a very vocal leader, and I find that you hit the nail on the head, the confrontation or what's it called, setting expectations or holding people accountable.
Difficult conversations.
Yeah, and I'm okay having them, but I also am not good at being proactively working on them, because to me it's unfortunately, with a million things going on, that becomes an afterthought. I'm not just a designated hey, I'm managing people. So I find that if I don't put enough focus on it, it ends up not being as well handled as it probably should be if I was putting more emphasis on it. So I think the biggest thing that I find with let's say managing or leadership is typically, if you, in my thought, and please correct me on any of this that I'm wrong on, but setting the expectation up front, I think that's something I do a poor job on. And then the accountability side,
you're not alone.
Yeah, well, the accountability side, I'm good at myself. I set my expectations high, I keep myself accountable. When it comes to others, I kind of have this mindset of all right, screw it, I'll just take care of it or whatever. Because I've always tried to be someone that controls what I can control.
Sure.
And then let go of what I can't control. And I hate micromanaging. I like letting people do their thing. But I also realize that time and place that I probably am too lax, or even though I don't control, I still have a lot of input on that, meaning like the accountability and the expectation setting. But it's like I always struggle with that because I'm like, I got to take care of my stuff, and then whatever's left over, I'll help people above and beyond that, but I don't have a full enough time to like handhold or babysit.
Yeah.
So pick that apart and give me like your best practices, because I feel I give myself like a D+ on managing, and I'm sure you're way, way higher than that.
Oh, there's room for growth every day for everybody. I feel like if you're kind of responsible for people, it needs to be a really top priority. So if you're affecting somebody's life every day, whether that be a personal life or your work life, you really need to put that at the top of your priority list. So even though you have 20 tasks, right, and there's only so many hours in a day, I actually put those things in my calendar. So I have 4 different calendars.
Okay.
But my work calendar specifically, I make sure that I schedule that time with my people. So that way, no matter what's coming my way, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not actually available for that hour and a half. So I make sure that they get my undivided attention, because if not, as you know, hundreds of emails a day come flooding in. There's always a task to do. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you have to schedule it. In addition to that, I always try to have like some sort of group activity too. So for example, right now at Plattco, so I have a pretty old company, so there's a lot of work to do. Like we have a new ERP system. It's been a huge learning curve for Plattco. We're 127 years old. Everything was done by paper, except for the sales department. We were already using computers. Nonetheless, it's still a brand new computer system. So this is where this management stuff becomes really important. If I don't take my time and I don't teach them and show them what they need to do and coach and develop and correct and do all those things, it's going to be much harder for me down the road. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather take that time now, actually get them around a big conference table. I have a TV that I sync up my Surface tablet to, and we walk through it and we answer questions and we do a training session. Do I have all the time in the world to do that? Absolutely not. But I know that if I make time today, that's going to make my life so much easier a couple months down the road. And they feel supported. And then the accountability happens, because I know that I did my due diligence of taking my time, reassuring, listening to the questions, answering them. So it's really just about, it really has to be a priority even above and beyond our daily tasks, if you're in charge of people. Yeah,
so I guess, how do you go about, we'll come back to all the calendar and stuff after.
Sure.
It's something that I've worked on, but if you... when you do, like, let's do expectation setting and holding people accountable, like, what's your process for that on both those sides?
Sure. So we have basically a review sheet that I go over with them. I meet with them quarterly, sometimes more than that. I'll meet with them anytime they really need to. My door's always open. But quarterly, I have their expectations. So here's your quarter 1 goal. You've got to do this, this, and this that they agree with me on. We set dates. We set an action plan. The biggest thing is having those action plans with the goals. Don't just throw goals at them. Have them buy in. Are these goals that you want to do? Mm-hmm. How does this affect them? And I usually, 90% of the time, want those goals to tie into the goals that I need, because that's delegation. Mm-hmm. So not only do I have my big goals, I chew them up into little tiny goals for all the people on my team, and I know whose strengths and weaknesses are what. So I know who to delegate what to, and everything's laid out, and then we just kind of keep that timeline along with those goals.
So, and you're talking the sales department, right?
Sales department, actually run field service, and I'm doing marketing.
Okay, so you're double. Do you have like a marketing department, or is there a few people within that group?
So we work closely with Boyer Benner Group, but it's really just myself and Aaron Benner and his team right now.
So, and Aaron makes up 10 people. So,
he does. Yeah. The energy is like off the hook. I really enjoy talking with Aaron.
Yes, he's one of my best friends. He's talked wonderful. To him Friday, and a typical Benner 2-hour, just like. Yeah. Buckle up, like he's going full tilt, but no, he's great. So how many people do you think you manage out of all the combined?
14.
Okay, so when you say the expectations and setting the expectations and goals, when you say like your expectations, are you the one kind of calling the macro shots of the goal? I mean, I'm sure you're getting input and brainstorming, but ultimately it would come down to you to really kind of put the timeline together and put the expectations and priorities together.
Yeah, and they can shift too sometimes. Just make sure you're communicating. The biggest thing is communication. So I tend to over communicate. That's probably, I'd rather over communicate than not communicate enough. And I am thoroughly upfront with my team when I say that. I'm like, hey guys, I'm just gonna let you know there's probably gonna be 10 emails or 10 text messages that are gonna come out today. And I just would rather them be in the know than be like, God, I really wish you would have told me that, you know. And that's probably a part that's a really big struggle too, over communicating and not communicating enough.
Now, when it comes to communication, because I agree, I mean, 99% of problems are miscommunication.
Yes.
And this is between your spouse, this is between your best friend, this is
Everything
between
ties
work.
together.
It's all miscommunication, or lack of communication, whatever. And so when you talk about communicating like too much, do you think there's a line that's too much? And then I think couple that with micromanaging / hand-holding, because I find that perfect example, if I'm following up with clients, I am very proactive with following up with clients in my business. If I was following up with you about something and I said, hey, I'll check in next week, you better believe I'm checking in next week. So I'm very organized on my systems, and my memory sucks, but I have tools.
Yeah, exactly. Got to have these tools.
Yes. But I won't forget that stuff, and I'll follow up. But then I find that sometimes with like people in our own company and agents, where if I ask you multiple times for something, then I'm like, okay, I'm either chasing you or hand-holding you, or now I'm into the micromanaging part because you're not stepping up and doing what I asked. And I'm one of those, my management style is like, hey, Alicia, like I want you to do X, and I'd really like you to have it done this week. Okay, great. If it's not done this week, be like, hey, did you get that done? No, something came up. I'll get it done next. Okay, great. Then it's kind of like a couple days later, hey, just checking in again, and it's like still not done. So then it's, and my thought is, and again, this is a poor probably thing on my part, is I trust that you're an adult, and if I tell you to do something, that you are an adult and will get it done, and that you will take responsibility. And I never, it's kind of like what people say, I will never ask you to do something I haven't done before.
Sure.
I will never ask you to do something that I think is unrealistic. It's just like, you have plenty of time to get this done. You just need to focus, time block, whatever you need to do to get it done. And if it's not done, I really don't want to hear an excuse, but like, what, just like, when is this going to be done? And can this be the last time I'm asking you to get it done?
Yeah.
And so where do you find the balance of too much being micromanaging, or then it turns into like hand holding? You know where I'm kind of going with this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a hard thing to not run into, right? Because you want your team to know that you trust them first and foremost. The biggest thing that I'll tell my team is, if you cannot meet a deadline, do not wait till that day to tell me, and don't wait till it goes by and I have to ask you.
Yeah.
So I make that a really clear
Like
expectation.
that, yeah.
That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. If you're not going to meet a deadline, don't wait till I have to come ask you, because that's just not okay. That's the part where I think being an adult, if you can go to your boss and say, hey, this, and this has come up, and in my opinion, it was a bigger priority, and here's why, so I'm going to need an extension. That's a lot different than me going to somebody's office and saying, hey, Joey, I asked, you were supposed to have this done yesterday. I didn't see that come through. Oh, I totally forgot about it. Well, that's a completely different scenario. So I think it's really setting those expectations up front about what you expect as a manager. And that way, literally, once they know that you trust them to get it done. And if they can't get it done, they're going to let you know ahead of time. And then you can build a plan around it. Well, what is it that you really need to do? Can we delegate that to Susie? Can we put that off until next week? Because this one is, sometimes they need some help with some prioritization, which is a struggle for a lot of people.
And do you find that when people that get stuck, that they are able to come to you, or they are willing to come to you, or do you find that still is like a sticking point for people where they just don't come ask for help or clarification? Or
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Actually, as long as you make yourself approachable and they know that you're not going to fly off the handle. Like, I have never raised my voice at a single person. You do not, I definitely lead with kindness and empathy. People think that's a fault. I don't, because I get a lot of people to do a lot more things for me than if I was banging my fist on the desk.
Dictator.
And I'm just never going to be that person. I'm not that kind of mother. I'm not that kind of wife, and I'm never going to be that kind of manager.
Yeah, I think we kind of they're called soft skills. I think that's something that's kind of how I approach stuff too. Is I give people the benefit of the doubt all the time, even to the point where I'm like, I probably shouldn't. Because I always look at I have no clue what's going on in your life right now. So if you were to walk in here and be super chipper, awesome. If you came in here like mopey, and be like, I don't think she likes me. It might not be that. It might be you got a bad call on the way here. It could be you're stressed out about something, you know, at home or just like at work that has nothing to do with this.
Sure.
But it weighs on your head. And we all are human. There's stuff on my head right now. There's stuff on your head. You
of
know,
course.
It's like, you know, but, you know, to give someone, you know, instead of saying, you know, jumping down your throat, and you'd be like, hey, I have a close family member that's like not doing well health-wise.
Exactly.
Like, oh, okay, guess what? Take care of that. Like
Yeah.
what I'm asking you to do right now is irrelevant. Like it really is in that situation. So, you know, and I think that level, because I would appreciate that. And I feel I give that more than I receive it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably feel, because I feel like there are a lot of people that are like that. And I think a lot of people are too stuck in their own mind, like selfishly kind of like, well, I don't care. Like this is what I want. And it's like, well, yeah, I get that, but everybody's life's hard. Everybody's doing
it's
stuff.
So hard.
And it's like it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it's just, but you gotta, you know, I think you gotta be reasonable with people. And I think that the work aspect, especially because most people, if you asked every person that works and be like, what do you like to do? If you had a perfect, no limitations in your life, I very rarely think most people are like, I want to go to work. And not because they, but I'm saying like, I love my job.
You're right.
I like my stuff too. But like, if you really had to ask me like, what would you do? I would probably go do something with my wife and kids. I would probably, you know, go do some hobby. Like I would want something that's different. So I realize that most people, especially when it comes to family and stuff, like work's not their top. I mean, some people are, but I feel like most people's priority is their family.
And it should be.
Which it should be. And which is certainly mine. And that's a big
mine too.
Change that I've had in the last handful of years, just as my life's gotten busier with family. As we've gotten more kids, like I've put even more time into my family because you have to, and I'm very happy I'm doing that versus the alternative. But it's still, and I still want to make sure that's reciprocated, meaning to other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, you must run into that too with like, you know, get the family dynamics, you get the person, because people are very complicated. You know?
They are, and people have a lot of things going on, like you said. I think for me, so I came from humble, you know, beginnings. I have been through quite a bit of things in my life that has given me a lot of experience in different things. And so that makes me really understanding on knowing that people go through things that are terrible, things that not everybody handles it the same. How I may handle a situation is not the way somebody on my team might handle a situation. What I really love is knowing that we can communicate that to each other. So like I have team members on my team that are going through some very bad things. I just let them know that I'm always here for them. Whatever they're comfortable with sharing, I'm always have a listening ear. Even if I don't have the time, I will always make the time for that. Because if you give time for them to vent about something that's really bothering them, they're going to trust you, and they're going to, they're going to give you their best when they're in the office. So really, your team, that's why I always say your team is number one. If you're a good leader, you're going to know what's going on with everybody on your team for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be some intimate personal things that, you should never be involved in. But for the most part, I know quite a bit of big events that are going on each person on my team. And that helps me be a better manager because I know what I can and can't give them at that moment. Like if somebody's going through a divorce privately, I'm obviously not going to pile on 10 tasks, right? Because in the background, they're probably having a terrible day, multiple days, right? And so I'm going to delegate that stuff to somebody who may have a little bit more time, and they communicate to each other. So if you're creating that real team bond, having those extracurricular activities, so we'll go out and bowl, we'll go and have dinner. Sometimes I'll just order lunch in and we'll sit around and play board games. Do we have time for that? Absolutely not. But is it important? Yes.
It reminds me of the, do you watch The Office?
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Office episode where he does the murder mystery.
Yeah.
And Jim's yelling at him about, like, we don't have time. And it was, I always like that. One, it's a funny episode, but it comes full circle where I think it was like Jim realizing, like, Michael's crazy, he's wasting all this time. Then he realized, like, I think they had a good line about, like, there's a problem, but the kids don't need to know there's a problem.
Exactly.
And you got to, like, just kind of take their mind off of it and just, like, and I think that there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, we've done some of that. I don't think I've done it to the extent. Like every once in a while, it's like, okay, let's just pack up and like we'll go to Iris's and get a drink. Like like on a Friday, late in the afternoon when it's just kind of like things are settling down. But like let's just wind down. We had like a good week.
Yeah.
But I guess from the jumping back to the accountability aspect. So like you set the expectations up front and you delegate to what who you think's going to do well at whatever task.
Yeah.
So the accountability is, I guess, how often do you check in with people regarding the task? And you talked about doing like a quarterly review. Is that, I mean, you probably check in more often.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the bigger check-in where I delegate a lot more time for that. Honestly, it's daily touch points. It's daily touch points, but not in a micromanager way, but just seeing, how are you doing? Do you need any help with anything? Is there any big projects that are going on that you're struggling with? And just knowing the things that are bogging them down. So if you want a successful team, especially in sales, you need to know what's holding them back. So if you get that out, then you know how to help them. And that'll give you a clear path, basically, on helping them get to their goals. The accountability part, I always look in the mirror first if somebody misses something. Mm-hmm. So what did I do? Did I not coach them enough? Did I not give them a good enough goal? Did I not set clear expectations? Did I not help them with the timelines? You're right, everybody's an adult, and I agree with that, but I still feel like it's a leader's responsibility to lay that path.
So I'm the same way. I always look internally before I point fingers at people. What's your thought on how much do you put on yourself before realizing that it's external?
Sure. So when I can look in the mirror and say, no, I did everything that I could possibly do. And, I've given every chance. I've asked them. I've let them tell me why they could or could not succeed. And I'm just going by what they're telling me and what I observe. So...
I mean, do you play that game sometimes where you go internally and then you almost micromanage yourself?
You
pick apart it and then you realize, like, no, I'm really just making excuses for them at this point because I'm like, I struggle with that because most of the time, one of the best pieces of advice my dad gave me when I first got into real estate was, and this was kind of like in the business field or whatever, he just goes, if you can go to bed at night with a clear conscience, you're good.
That's true.
And I make mistakes every day, but if I know I made the mistake in the sense that I tried my best or made it with the right intent, I'm fine. Like I said, I could have made a totally wrong decision. In hindsight, I'm like, that was a dumb decision. But in the moment, if I felt like that was the best decision and I went with it, then I don't second guess. I learn from it and move on. Yeah. So I've always done that, and I can say I've never gone to knock on wood, this continues, but I've always made a good decision, even if it's not like short term good for me. It's more long term, or I've left like opportunity or money or whatever on the table, but it's not worth, and I might be even fabricating what the negative would be, but I just feel it's not worth the potential of having that happen. Yeah. But there are times when I'm dealing with people where I'm like, I hate doing this, but I kind of have to point the finger at that person because, and I think at some point I struggle with that because I don't like pointing fingers at people, but I also there's a certain point where I can't just like I said before, make excuses for that person when I'm like, this is really a them problem.
And sometimes that is, and sometimes that is just the case, right? And that's where disciplinary actions come into place. You know that you have coached and developed and spoken with and done a million different things. Well, then there comes a point where you do have to actually write somebody up, or unfortunately, they have to go. They're not the right person for the job. And it takes a bit to get there if you're the kind of coach that I am, because you don't want to just write somebody off. But honestly, you also don't want to waste all your energy on somebody like that, and then you're not giving the energy to the people that are really trying to make you successful, because really you're only as successful as the team that you build. I'm only successful because I have built a team around me that wants to be successful. So in our company's a little bit different because we have 2 staff and then we have like 15 independent contractors. Yeah, you got a little bit different thing. So it's the one thing I struggle with from a managing standpoint, and this is, I'm going to use this as an excuse. I don't know if this is true or not, but I might use it. If not, I'm going to use it as an excuse. Like, we have 2 people that are here every single day. I have the closest relationship with those 2 people versus all the independent contractors that, I'll be honest, some agents I don't see throughout the entire year. Sure. Some I see once a month. Some I might see once a week or a couple times a week. But if you really kind of use that 80-20 principle, like 20% of our agents I probably see weekly or monthly, and there's 80% that if I run into them, meaning like I might catch them, I might be gone from the office when they show up, but like there's a few times
I don't see agents here.
Yeah.
And this is the industry in general. It's not just like a Kavanaugh Realty thing. This is like every company that does real estate can attest to this. But I find because they're independent contractors, nothing states they have to be here at a certain time. If we do trainings, if we do events, there's nothing stating they have to show up. Now, granted, I could say, listen, we're releasing your license if you don't show up to these. And
Sure.
You got to kind of weigh the pros and cons, because like, because they're independent contractor, as long as they're not complaining and they're doing their own thing and they don't want to show up, but they're fine with their results, and so be it. I don't like that personally, because I'm one that I'm like always trying to get better. But then I find that, our staff that work here that I see every day, we do get more done, or better communication, kind of all the things you said about knowing what's going on in their lives and knowing kind of what they're good at or need work on, or where they excel, or what they can delegate. Like, I understand that tremendously. But unfortunately, I wish everybody was like, hey, everybody's here every day, and I could check in with everybody. It's just not the reality. And have you ever dealt with that with independent contractors? So how would you do that? Because either like I said, I may not just know how to do it.
No, I'm sure.
You have a good secret.
No, I'm sure you do, and that's a struggle. So at Plattco, basically it works. I have my in-office salespeople. They're inside sales, and I have a group of 5, and then 5, and then I have a group of people that are considered outside salespeople. So they're all over the country. So in the South, West, Midwest, Northeast, and then I have an international person. And in addition to that, in each one of these different locations, probably about 30 different agents. So these are people that go to either our current customers or future customers, and they're looking for different applications where our product may go, and they earn a commission, like a 5 or a 10% based on whatever project they bring to us. I cannot hold those people accountable personally.
So when you say, say you have someone in the South, that person from the South is under your jurisdiction with Plattco, and then under them they have
agencies. So there'll be a customer or a person in the South, an agent company that sells our airlock valves. They also sell rotary valves. They sell different systems, right? So we're part of their line card.
So you're a salesperson selling it to the business, and the business selling it to consumers or their businesses.
Could be, or they're riding around with my direct salespeople.
Okay.
So it's kind of like an extension of us. Okay. But I can't hold them accountable because they don't work for me. They have their own business. They just sell our product because they know how to sell stuff into those industries, sell our product into those industries.
So how much direct contact do you have with those people?
For me personally now, not as much,
Okay.
But my salespeople have constant contact. So my direct sales team talks to them. Sometimes it could be a couple times a week, depending on how many projects they have going on together. And different areas of the world are busier than others because we sell all over the world. But what I have decided, or basically this year, has been to create a scorecard for them. So my outside salespeople that travel into those different areas, they now have a scorecard to be like, okay, did they show up to trainings? They've been asking for more training. Did they show up to our virtual trainings?
This is the sub. I'm going to call them subcontractors.
Yes, subcontractors is a good word. They don't work for me. They have their own business. So creating a little scorecard, do they communicate where they've been? Have they told you, have they handed over any good projects lately? What came out of those projects? Did they follow up or did you follow up? These trainings that they're asking for, well, I've scheduled 3 different trainings now and they haven't showed up to one, and I've asked them, what time works best for them. They don't send me an email back, or they don't answer my phone call. To me, those are things that are people that are just disengaged. If I've tried to reach out to you 3 or 4 times and you haven't returned a call, email, or text, to me, that those are things that are on you, not me.
So,
and maybe they're not the right person for that for us.
So if you have a regional salesperson that goes out from Plattco, and they're the ones that are seeing all these other people, so they kind of have the more direct contact. Are they doing a level? I mean, there's still a level of managing and leadership within that, or these subcontractors don't really care. They're selling the product, but they're like, listen, I got a bunch of stuff. You're one of 10 products I'm selling.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I don't love, because if I have an agent that has 20 things on their line card, there's probably 9 times out of 10 they're not even mentioning Plattco. So these agents are something that I really looked closely at since I became the manager, because I feel like they were making a lot of money for not doing a lot of work. So they had blanket commissions. So let's just say they were an agent in Minnesota, and we closed the product in Minnesota, meaning my direct team. They would just earn a commission on it.
The sub person.
Yeah. And I was like, no, that's not how that's going to work.
Yeah.
So just taking a deeper dive into that is all about accountability, kind of checking up, making sure that things make sense. So take a look at your business. Does it make sense financially? Are people making money the right way? Is your commission or sales structure designed so your company wins? And if it's not, you got to change it.
Yeah.
So just this year, and actually I just had a review with my CEO Friday, and that's your time to toot your own horn, by the way. You should always do that. But saving the company over $500,000 this last year, just by the changes that I've made.
Like efficiency models and
Efficiency
stuff.
things,
Yep.
changing processes, looking at rep contracts. Those are all things that you just got to take the time to do.
Have you guys had to make any adjustments with the economy at all, or has you guys kind of been?
We've blown up actually because
in a good way.
a great way.
Okay.
So typically, I mean, we were like a 10, 12, or $14 million a year company. It kind of fluctuated between like that bubble. We're only 55 people in a worldwide company, so it's pretty crazy. Last year we did 18.3 million.
Wow.
Which is a huge jump for a
You said
small
from what,
company.
like 12 to 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
you know,
massive.
it was
30%, 40%?
It's huge. And we have our own foundry. We have, like I said, 55 employees. So that's a lot of increase for really not any more people, right? So we had to learn how to become more efficient. We launching this new ERP system. So it's really just about trying to see where you can trim out the fat. Do you have the right people in the right spots? Even when it comes to agents that you can't directly manage, are those the right agents? When you hire an agent, how are you portraying Cavana Realty? What are the core values that you are looking for in these people? And if they don't meet them, don't hire them.
Well, that's something that I've gone back and forth. So when you take like, because we have a lot of agents and stuff, and really if you look at, it's kind of like the, you know, I really like the 80-20 principle idea, is that like 20, you know what that is, right? Like 20% equals 80% of the results.
Yep.
So you can kind of look at it. If you have, you know, we might be like 17 or 18 agents in total, which normally if you ask people like, hey, how many agents work at your company? Most people are probably going to say a couple, because they don't know, you know what I mean? Because it's you see the same names. This goes for every company out there.
Sure.
You pretty much see, if you take our whole board, you see about 20% of the agents regularly, and 80% you don't, even though they're there and they do a couple deals here and there. So it gets to the point where it's like, okay, what's the cost? And I kind of looked at this last year at one point. It was like, what's the cost of an agent to have? Now, there's twofold. One is like obviously the monetary cost. Is there anything that we're spending each year or each month to keep them up and running?
Sure.
We looked at it. There was only a couple things, and we made some tweaks on it. We're actually right now, we talked about like efficiencies and trimming the fat on certain things. We got better at certain, like just switching around some of our systems internally saved us thousands of dollars a year because they weren't being utilized, or we found ways that were better. You know, and thinking a little bit more outside the box, and that was good. So then you look at the cost of an agent, not a whole lot from a monetary standpoint per month, and then you look at, okay, what's the cost for time, like training and things like that? Well, unfortunately for a lot of these, it's not much because they don't come to training or they don't do stuff. So then you really, like I look at them like, okay, we have a couple agents that do a few deals a year. They might do, you know, anywhere from 1 to 5 deals a year, but they understand enough of what they're doing. They're not really a headache. They're not causing problems. Is it worth just keeping them on? Because you do, from a company standpoint, make a little bit of revenue from them. And I lean to the point, like, as long as they're an okay like a good person, they're not like mean or malicious or doing something negative, fine. I really don't talk to them. It's kind of like, honestly, it's from a business perspective or an ownership perspective, it's a decent ROI because there's not a lot of energy investment on that end. And there's some people that there's more energy investment, but really, you know, it just gets difficult because I'm someone that I like making everything better in my life. Like I want to say a perfectionist, but I'm
always striving to be better than yesterday. So I will take the biggest risk in the world if I think that there's a little bit of reward out of it. Like I'll jump off that cliff.
And case in point, what I've been doing for a while, and nobody will see this stuff. Like this is the thing that like we will, and it'll make us super efficient. It'll make our clients happier down the road that we did this, and our agents and everything. But it's me spending, I mean, months and months and months and all these hours trying to do stuff that, fortunately and unfortunately, fortunately, I'm the only one that can. I say the only one, like a lot of it, I'm the only one that can do it. I've delegated a lot to some of the staff, but there's some stuff that I'm the one that has to do it.
Sure.
Like, I know the ins and outs of pretty much everything in the company and I'm really getting to the point where that changes, that in the future I don't have to be there, but things have...
Takes time.
Yeah, things have evolved. So it's like sitting there and like right now, as boring as it sounds, I'm going through every client on our database to revamp all these systems we built, to re-put them into the new system, where I can't just put them in and like forget it.
Yeah.
Because everybody's, like if your name comes up or this person's name comes up or this person, they all have different levels of where they're at or what they mean to me as, in my business, that I have to, whether it's tagging or launching certain things that I have to do individually. Well, there's thousands of people. And each person takes, it's not like 5 seconds each person. It's like, a minute each person, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But then you start looking at them like, I showed Jen today, I'm like, I did the front back of this and it took me 20 minutes and I got a stack of this to do. So I'm like, it's not hard. It's just, you just sit there and bang your head off the screen because I'm like, I'd rather be doing anything but doing this.
But that.
But I go back to what you just said. Like if I can know there's an improvement, and this is going to be a massive time financial ROI on this, I know it's worth doing. It's painful doing it, but when it's finally done, I'm like, oh, thank God it's done. So when you look at like efficiencies, like what's a couple things you talked about? You saved quite a bit of money this year for the company. Where's your main focuses, or what do you look at, and how do you make the decision to change stuff and tweak stuff? And let's start there, and I have a follow-up on that.
Yeah. So the biggest decision on changing something is, can I change it without it being detrimental, as in losing an employee, right? Because you always want to be careful about decisions you make, because it might make somebody who currently works for you be like, well, that's just crazy and I'm out of here too. So you kind of want to think, is it a win for Plattco? Is it a win for the customer? Is it a win for my sales team? And you kind of weigh that out. Financially is a big one. Obviously, that's always a big driver for decisions. But another big driver for decisions is it going to increase morale? Is it going to make things better in the office? Is it going to be better for the teams that are past us? So like at Plattco, there's several teams, right? So there's sales, there's engineering, there's production, there's manufacturing, there's all different aspects to it. So when you're making these decisions, you got to think about how is it going to benefit multiple people, not just financially, but just like I said, the morale at work. So those are the biggest things. Improving processes, that's a huge one. So people get really annoyed with having to do tasks that take up a lot of time, but there's not a lot of benefit, right? So really looking at those kinds of things. I eliminated, there was a process basically that we would rebuild something. Well, the task to get there to rebuild something was a little tiny benefit for the customer financially, not a whole lot. And there was about 7 people involved, different departments, and administratively it was a nightmare and it cost a lot of money. I was like, we are not doing that anymore. And those are kinds of things you just got to kind of look at. Like sometimes it's just, no, we're just done with that. It just doesn't make any sense. So really just thinking things through in that way. I mean, does it make sense?
So my question off of that too, because it's always tough because you're weighing a lot of things. Actually, I'm going to slip another question. How far out do you project on your changes when you talk about wanting to make this efficient in the future? Is there short term? Is it long term? Like, where do you think that falls in? Or how far out is your mindset when you make those decisions?
Yeah, it's both. So sometimes there's like immediate, like I want this changed today. And sometimes it's, okay, so I'm not going to roll this out because that's going to make my team's head blow off their shoulders. I'm keeping it back here. I'm going to keep it in my notes, and I'm going to think about this again in Q3. So it kind of depends on that. I'm thinking, honestly, years ahead. I'm thinking probably 2 years right at the moment, because there's been so many changes at Plattco that I'm probably about 2 years out right now. And that's really, I'm playing in that field.
So when you set quarterly, so you set mostly by quarterly goals?
Quarterly and yearly. Okay,
so when you do the quarterly goals, how big is the quarterly goals look like? I mean, is that going to take is it like a stretch goal where like we can certainly accomplish this in a quarter, but we really got to like step up and do it?
I want it to be manageable, right? Because I don't want that to consume them. Because in the real thing that I want them to focus on is the daily tasks of customers. Our customers are number one. So that's the main priority. The quarterly goals are, how do we move Plattco forward? I'm always like, how do we have progress? I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking at making little improvements as we go along to make things more efficient. We get better, and that makes our work easier. Work easier. Stop working so hard.
Well, if you took out like a percentage wise, what percentage is on day to day and what percentage is on like your quarterly goals?
Yeah. So if how much a percentage of a quarterly goal would it take to complete that task?
Let's just, I'll break it down to like a week just to keep it simple. Like if you were looking at a normal week and I was to pull up your calendar or someone on the team's calendar and you said, okay, here's their day to day. They're dealing with clients, they're on service calls, or they're out and about or just on the phone. You have that time, and then how much time is so that's in business, how much is on business, where they're working on making those, that progress over the quarter.
In a weekly time, probably not a whole lot. Maybe 5% of their week. They're just taking little snippets.
On the on-business stuff.
Basically on their quarterly goals.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to customers, take a lot of our time.
Okay.
So that is most of our day, most of their day. So a lot of times it's trying to figure out, how do I help this customer? We work closely with engineering. Honestly, that's just 95% of our day is solving customer problems.
Yeah, because I try to go in, again, in our business, kind of the same thing. If you take kind of what do you do all the time, and then what, like right now I try to break my week in a perfect world. On business is like the first half of the day, in business is the second half of the day. I've always tried to break up my morning as like I'm working on projects, I'm time blocking the morning out to do whatever, get ahead of it's kind of like waking up in the morning and like working out or something. You do it in the morning because you know you're not going to do it in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm up at 4 a.m. every day.
So if that stuff gets done, but I kind of use the same thing as my business. So when I get here, I want to make sure that the first part of the day is on moving the company forward. Then anything with clients, I call it proactive work in the morning, reactive work, meaning anything that comes into me and I'm reacting to calls or phone calls or requests or emails, that's pushed out. Typically, either right before 11 is probably the earliest I check that stuff, and then sometimes I even push it to early afternoon if I can.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at that, but then trying to figure out, like you said, with clients, I've gotten to the point, I've gotten better at this. This is tough. One of the things have you ever read the book The One Thing?
No.
Okay. I think you would like it, but it's one of my all-time favorite books, and it's how I do my task, my goal setting and priorities. And one of the things they say in the book is you have to spend the day doing your one thing, which is your main thing for that day, whatever that might be.
Sure.
And that could be something that takes a half hour, it could be something that takes 5 hours.
Sure.
Your goal is to time block it, work on it, and then the hardest part about that, because you want to do everything and be there for everyone, is that they talk about embracing the chaos, meaning that if there's something that's not going to get done, or you have to let something slide, or potentially let something slide, whether you get chastised for it by the client or someone else,
could be. You
got to let it go because you know that what you're doing is more important. I've gotten way better at that, and it's funny because I've experienced the side effect of pissing people off, but I also don't really care. It's you care, but you don't.
But you can't all the time.
You can't. That's a better term, is you can't because of the priorities that you set. So you kind of have to take the good and the bad. So some of the bad is not. It's the good far outweighs the bad. And do you do that? Do you find that? Do you struggle with that? Do you find that that's easy? Meaning, if you're doing everything, which this is a priority, and these things are going to slip through the cracks and might cause some short-term problems.
Sure. But
we're fixing some long-term long-term potential problems.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has to let some things go sometimes. You literally cannot. I always think about that person that spins plates on a straw. It's got everything balanced there. Listen, if you have kids and you have a spouse and you have a career and you have family, it is a hard balance no matter how good you think you are. Nobody's fantastic at that. I think the further you get into your career and the older you get, I'm 41 at this point. I have a daughter in college. I'm actually having a grandbaby in May.
Oh, wow.
My daughter who I had when I was 19 is now having a baby. She's 21. It's a wonderful thing. I'm so excited. Yeah. But you learn to just kind of know what is really important, right? So when I was 20 working for Verizon at customer service, everything was a priority. I was in panic all the time, and I just wanted to make everybody happy all the time. And you really learn over time that you really can't, because the only person that's going to be miserable is going to be you. Mm-hmm. And I've literally, there's times where I've cried on the way home because I'm literally I can't make everybody happy, and I want to. You just can't, and you have to keep that in mind.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I read a lot of leadership books.
Okay.
And I see that you read a lot of books. That helps keep me grounded. I make sure that just set aside a time with family. Like I'll be like, okay, Sunday, I'm making a big family dinner. Let's invite Aunt Linda. Let's invite our parents, and I just try to decompress. That's probably what I beat myself up about the most, is because sometimes I get so career focused that then I don't make time for those extra family members, just the ones immediately in my household. You got to make time for people, because those are the things that bring you joy, and those are the reasons why you're working so hard, and you got to remind yourself of that.
Do you so like in a normal week, you said you have 4 calendars. Like how do you, so what are the 4 calendars?
Yeah.
And kind of how do they work together, and how do you manage your time?
Yeah. So I have my personal calendar, which is all of my, doctor's appointments and things like that. I just want to show you this. So let's see in here. So this is my calendar. And by the way, look at this email box. It's 10,225.
That stresses me out, but that's okay.
That one
How's
is
your
for
text messages?
way better than Daniel Howard
Okay.
Ross.
That's going to be some shit there.
I don't have any.
Okay. But I actually like the reason Danielle does it, though.
I
because
know.
She just is like, I don't need to talk to you.
Right.
You're not
she
priority.
just can't. And I think that that's fantastic.
I love it. Yes. It
And I
stresses me out
respect her.
seeing that, but I do respect her a lot.
I
wish
respect
had
her a
that.
ton for that.
Yes.
I really do. And I picked on her many times about that,
That's
too.
so funny.
But like,
So-
so I have work set aside. I have my personal bills, that kind of stuff that I have in that calendar. And then I have my daughter's college stuff. And then I have my other daughter's high school stuff. Because there's so many things going on that if I don't separate that out, the last thing I want to drop the ball on is one of my 2 girls.
What do you have? What kind of calendar do you use?
I just use basically, or emails is what I should have said. I should have said email boxes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but yeah, I just use my Outlook email or my Outlook calendar.
So you have 1 calendar, but you have 4 emails.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's no way I could look at 4 calendars. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was like, I want to see how she does it.
But yeah,
Superhuman.
just basically, yeah, it just has everything all in there.
So, so when you go through, like, how do you set your calendar and intentions for the week? And because again, you have 2 daughters, you got a husband, you got work. Like, how do you put it all out in a week?
Yeah.
What's your...
Well, pretty much Friday when I'm done for the week, I look at the next week and just kind of see how my Monday's going to go. And then I don't look at it again until Monday morning, because I try to really separate everything on the weekend. When Friday at 5 o'clock comes, that's why I left retail. Plattco is closed. Every once in a while I've gotten a call from a customer, but that's rare because of kind of the position that I'm in now. But once that weekend hits, unplug. Don't check your emails. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I could do, because you get really distracted. And there's been times where my husband or daughters were asking me a question and I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, they're like, we tried to get your attention like 3 times, and they're literally standing in front of me. That's what the world needs to stop doing that. So put it away.
That's one of the, I love our... Actually, I had a conversation with someone today. They stopped in. I was talking to him about this, but so you got to set boundaries, and I find that one of the things I like our career, one of the things, or the industry, one of the things I dislike about it is the fact that it's gotten to the point where people think that you live on your phone 24/7 as an agent.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to train clients. The problem is, like, it's funny because if I call... There's plenty of businesses if I'll call and they don't call me back, and they don't call me back, and I'll try them 3 days later, and they call back, and finally they call back and they get them. I said, in my line of work, if I don't call someone back like soon, then I'm like, screw you, buddy, I'm going to the next person.
Right.
And I've gotten to the point now I'm okay with that, because it's one where, like, if I'm like, oh, they were upset that I didn't call them back in 3 hours on a Sunday when I'm with my kids, I'm like, screw it. Like, I don't want that client.
That's exactly right.
They're not going to gel with me. It's not worth it. But I find that I really want to either get to the point myself or our company or the industry or whatever where I can shut the phone off at 5 and not turn it back on. I'm not someone that I'm on social media because of the company. I honestly don't know if I'd be on social media if I didn't have to do it for work, because I'm not really into that. I like reading, I like hanging out, I like going golfing, I like skiing, I like doing I like hanging out with my kids. I like doing stuff that doesn't involve the phone.
Sure.
But unfortunately, your phone is such a tool now that between your calendar. I mean, I check my phone more because of my calendar, reminders on my calendar, to-do list. But I find that trying to like shut it off in the evenings, I've gotten way better at it. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb majority of the day.
Which is great.
Where like calls come in, but they go right to voicemail. And I don't hear them ring. And I will usually turn it on after the morning. And I'll respond to people and like, has that pissed people off and probably lost some business? Absolutely. But I get big projects done and I'm fine with it. Also on the weekend, how people text me, and the person I was talking to today was like, I had like 5 people call me on Sunday. I'm like, well, if you respond back to them on Sunday and make that the norm, then they abuse it. And I said, I had a couple people I had one person that texted me like 8 o'clock, not last night, it was the night before. I think it was Sunday at like 8 o'clock. I saw it. And I responded to him at 9 a.m. the next morning. That's
what you should do.
And it was like, and I saw it, and I was like, it's not a long conversation, but I said what I'm doing is, and it's harmless to respond now, except that it sets the precedence that this person now can text me at any hour of the day.
That's right.
And so I've gotten better at that. Same thing if I get texts in the morning, I'll wait till like 9. And it's not, if it's something that's really like warning signs, like this has to be taken care of right now, yes, I will respond. That's different, yeah. But those are 1 out of 100.
I was going to say that should be very rare.
Those are very rare.
Nothing's
Most of them
emergency.
Is like a question they could ask me later this afternoon or tomorrow or next week. So, especially in our line of business, like banks and attorneys don't work after hours. So, like if you're calling on a closing and you want to talk at 7 o'clock at night, now, granted, I will talk to you if you don't have access to talk the next day and this needs to get taken care of. Absolutely, I'll make time to talk to you. But if it's just people that randomly just text me because they just want to do it in the evening and not the afternoon, I'm like, listen, like,
that's your time.
And it gets tough, and I think most people are respectful of that. And I think the good thing is, as I've gotten older and more established within my industry, I can be a little more choosy with some certain things and can deflect some stuff. But it's tough because like you said, you want to help everybody, but you realize like I'm one person, I got a lot on my plate like everybody else, and I said you really got to be able to compartmentalize your life to the point where sometimes you just need a break. Also, middle of the week, like you do. Like, well, Friday, like we're going to the Irish breakfast in the morning, which is always fun.
Same here.
Yep.
I'll see you there.
Always fun.
And I'm taking a half day.
Same thing. We get done, and me and a few guys, we're going up to Whiteface, and we're going skating.
That's right. That's
and we've done it the last few years on St. Patrick's Day, and it's one of my favorite holidays. And it's funny because you think like, Kavanaugh Realty, we would be like open and doing stuff on St. Patrick's Day, and I'm like, no, I'm taking.
That's your holiday.
I'm taking it up. The day before, I'm doing a bunch of stuff for it, but yeah, we're going skiing, and it's a Friday this year, which is even better. So
way good. Yeah.
But that's part of it is just having those like little breaks in the week, and I also actually I'll show you my calendar.
And I think personal days are so important. And well, yours is even worse than mine.
Well, it looks. I feel like it's not terrible because like. I mean, it is and it isn't. So, like, this is how I break up my day, and you'll see it here shortly. Like,
this is important. Birthdays. I love that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I rely more on Facebook than that. I don't even know if people are on there on that birthday.
Well, like work ones. So, like, I have all my team's birthdays and their work anniversaries because I think those are important.
Should. No, I should, and I'm terrible at that. Like, honestly, if you told me when Jen's birthday is, I'm like, I kind of know when it is, but not. And she will never tell me, so I'll probably miss it, but that's fine. I'll get her back the next day. But this is... but let's see, like I block off, so I try to get up 5 in the morning, block it off. Of course, today got, long story short, but my alarm didn't go off, and I think the daytime, the switch on this, the daylight savings screwed up. So we were scrambling this morning to get the kids to the preschool. But so I usually block off, I bring my kids to school majority every day. That's awesome. Then my blue is my main things that I have to do that day, and that's the priority things where I like shut the door, work on it, and you can see that this is probably going to be there for 2-3 weeks, which is just that boring, tedious. I need all hours of the day to do it, and then you can see that I try to break stuff down. So blue, I have a lot of color coding things, which is funny because I'm colorblind, but I can see the difference in shades. So the blue is like the main. When I talk about one thing stuff, is like the main things I want to get done that day. And you can see that there's not a lot of them. I don't know why. Blue for my kids is just because my son's favorite color. Yeah. So I just put it in that because it was favorite color. This was last year. But this is main things I have to get done. And then this is like, okay, I check my email. Like my email tomorrow, I'll check it at 4 after this is done. And then I pause my email so nothing comes in till 1 o'clock tomorrow.
That's really
so,
nice.
Like you can see my inbox right now. These are actually tasks. Jen must be doing those. But like my email is at 0 because I have it paused. So nothing can come in my inbox. So this is my like monkey brain that I don't get distracted.
That is awesome.
So I do that every day. I typically check my email at 11 a.m. in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I pause it. I'll pause it from 4 till 1 o'clock tomorrow.
I love that.
And most things aren't a necessity. And very rarely is it like something I should have responded to.
Sure.
Most stuff's not a big priority. And that's bit me in the butt probably twice ever.
So it's worth the benefit.
Absolutely. Benefits me every day. So then red is when I'm with people. And then I have a couple minor things, but you can see like most of my week is I try to time block it and I try to get home at 5. Like tomorrow I'm probably going to have something at 6:30 that's going to fall in. A couple client things fill this up as the week goes on, but I really try to keep these, like if this doesn't happen, I'll move it somewhere else. But I'm getting through my main priority and tasks, and there's certain things I'll punt. So my week now looks way different than it did a year or 2 years ago, and 6 months from now this will look way different. But it's like the season of where I call it seasons, but like the season of where I am in my business, and then all the orange is just like notifications.
Yeah.
So, but you can see like breakfast
it.
and then white face, and I usually try to keep my Fridays like a flex day. So you can
Same.
see like GT free day as I try not to schedule appointments on that day, and it's just like catch all before I get into the weekend, which is family. And this is not
or
going
if I
well.
want to take a half day, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, like we'll go, sometimes I'll go golfing in the summer. Some days I'm just sitting in the office working harder than I've worked all week, but I have no appointments and I don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
And then this is something I want to get better at, but it hasn't worked yet, a digital free day. But I also use my phone for like a lot of like tasks that that don't necessarily translate to like, I'm not texting people, but I have to check my phone for something.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, not even really calendar, but like if I'm checking something for like, I don't know, like a workout, or if I'm checking something for just looking
just
something up or playing
Google,
music
or
it's just like we use it as just a search
everything.
engine.
I know. I mean, that is something that I still struggle with for sure. I feel like it's a work in progress. So listen, I came from this industry. When I started in telecommunications, it was a bag phone that cost $3,000 that only very rich people had, and they paid like $5 a minute for. I remember when text message launched, and I remember sitting in a text message meeting in like Albany, and they're like, this is the next best thing. I'm like, nobody's going to do that. They're just going to call each other. Well, that blew up real quick. And then Blackberries came out. And then I remember, like the
Did you have a
iPhone
BlackBerry?
launch. Yes, I did. I had the BlackBerry
Storm. That was my first
Storm.
nice phone was BlackBerry.
Loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember people waiting for days in tents for the iPhone. Like we were handing out like granola bars and coffee. Yeah, in Plattsburgh.
That's so funny.
And like I just think about how far this has come. And I remember not having a cell phone.
Like, bag phones were back, late 90s?
Yeah.
Mid-90s?
So 2002, there wasn't even a camera phone yet when I started. It was just a bar style black and white screen. There was no texting. There was nothing. You were calling.
My first phone from AT&T, I think I got in like 05 or 06. It was a little silver phone. Mm-hmm. It was a flip phone, no camera. I remember getting it. And it had like my number, which is still the same number I have today, and my parents' number. And I remember like I had nobody else's number.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was, I don't even know why we got it. I think my dad got it for work, and then there was like a plan. You get 5, everybody in the family.
Sure.
So
it was buy one phone, get 5 free all the time.
I think that's what it was. So I ended up getting this like little phone. And I remember there was I don't even know how I found out about this. I remember this little like motorcycle racing game. And all it was it was black. And it was clear, and there's a little like motorcycle guy, which basically looked like a dot on the screen, and you would just move like the buttons, and it would kind of like drive around this course. I remember just sitting there playing this, and I don't think there was texting on the phone. I think it was just calling.
I doubt it. Yeah.
And then I ended up getting a phone in 2006 or 7, and I was in high school, and I remember getting a new phone. Now this had a picture, or you could take a photo on it, and this was also a flip phone, definitely nicer than my first phone. And I remember it sat in the box from Christmas for probably 3 months or 4 months.
Which is wild.
And I only activated it because a girl wanted to text me, which is a great motivation for a kid
You're like,
in high
okay,
school.
let me get this active.
And I was like, nobody's going to text. This is stupid. I don't need a phone. We're good. You got my landline. Like, we got my home number.
Yeah, I know.
And so I remember I ended up... I activated it, and then I had it, and I kind of had that phone, and that was the first phone I used, and I actually kind of used it, and we were getting to high school, and people were texting, but it wasn't like not like
now.
No, and then I think my next phone was like a sliding phone. It had a mirror on it.
Oh yeah.
And I forgot which one that was, but you slid it up, and then you had the keyboard underneath. Mm-hmm. And then my phone after that went into the BlackBerry.
Yeah, those are awesome.
And the BlackBerry was great because you had like the numbers, and I actually
It's
liked
so
it because
great.
the first time I was like, I feel like I'm like a big boy now.
Of
I have
course,
like a cool phone.
that was like high class. That was like,
And that was, I think when I started real estate, I had a BlackBerry, and it was like just starting out. And then I quickly went to the iPhone, and I've had an iPhone since like 2012.
yeah, the
And I'm such an
the
I'm
best
an
thing.
Apple like
Everything.
junkie, so
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
So I mean, I guess from now like the phone aspect, because you have like I mean, you were in it for so long. Like, what do you think the biggest jump was in technology in that time frame? Because we're talking 20 years basically,
Yeah.
and we've had this amount of change.
huge amount of change.
I mean-
I don't think anything's changed more than the telecommunications industry, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
Maybe
I-
vehicles. Maybe vehicles. They've changed a lot too with electric cars and all
But
these
I don't
different
think
things.
they've
but-
changed as much day to day life.
Yeah, this has changed society. A cell phone has changed society, I think, more than anything else in the world.
I'd
I mean,
agree, yeah.
I try to tell my kids, and it sounds like an old lady thing to say, but I'm like, my parents didn't even know where I was. Like, I'd be like, I'll be home at 7. Mom, you making spaghetti tonight? And we were playing tag, and we were like riding our bikes all around town. Like,
I remember getting on like say soccer practice, and nobody had cell phones. So say the
Nobody.
practice got done early for some reason or
You
canceled.
sat there, or you
Everybody,
walked.
you were in like a line of your teammates trying to get to the phone to dial out from the AD's
Yeah.
office or the or phys ed teacher's office, and you would just call your parents and like hopefully they picked up.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, leaving a message, Mom and Dad, I'm at the school till in
Yeah.
perpetuity until you pick me up. But and then all of a sudden kids have cell phones and now they're like texting you at practice. And I'm like,
I know.
it's very weird.
well, and sometimes, you still have little kids, but as your kids get older, like, when your kids are always connected to you now. So, like, they'll be like, what's for dinner? What are we doing this weekend? You know, it's like, I don't know. Can you wait till I get home?
So that doesn't change because my kids are on they're the opposite spectrum.
Yeah.
But they're the same thing. It's just question after question.
Question after question.
Guys, just stop talking for a second.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
it doesn't
doesn't
change.
change. Just different
No.
way of getting a hold of Mom and Dad.
Yep.
Okay.
Does not change at all.
I was thinking there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
No.
I guess not.
The text messages get longer.
Well, then
and they ask for money and all these other things.
I always bust on Jen. I call her Uber Jen because she's like, she goes, all I do is drive these kids.
That's
around.
right. It's so true.
And her kid's almost to the point where she's going to get her license, but it's like
It's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, and we're getting into the part where now we're like slowly starting to cart the kids around.
Yeah.
We left. We were so Saturday we went to the hockey games. They had Plattsburgh
yeah.
State games, and so in between we went out to dinner. So we were walking out. We actually went to Yamasushi. We were eating. We walked
yeah.
out to go back to our car, and as we're walking to our car, this adult goes, "Hey, crew," which is my son's name. And I look over, and she's like, "Oh no, she goes, I'm just so and so's mom." I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm just wasn't expecting someone to say like, hey,
Right.
he's 5." I'm like,
Right.
And I'm
like, you know people in the town now?
I'm like, "Hey, can you tell me about how do you know all these people?" And he's just like, "Oh, she's so and so's mom." I'm like, "Okay." Like, so I just got the biggest kick out of that because here
I
he
love
is
it.
just kind of like strutting down the sidewalk, being like, "Hey, what's up?"
Future mayor.
Oh, God. Yeah, if you knew him, you'd talk his way out of any situation.
I love
it. So when we talk about like where you are now, and I want to still kind of stay on the cell phone thing, and where do you feel this stuff is going? Obviously, you see like the are you like big into like the current events and things that are happening, like AI is coming out now, and you have all these these new technologies that are popping out. I mean, how much in tune are you with that stuff?
Less now that I'm not into that industry anymore. So that industry was so overwhelming at times. So talk about not being able to be disconnected. I remember going to Disney World in 2013 with my family and having to bring my iPad, my phone, because you can't disconnect when it comes to this stuff anymore. So
Was that for work or was
that was
for,
for
like,
work.
for photos?
No,
or
that was
something?
for work.
Okay.
Like, so because you have these things, I feel like when you work for certain companies, they think that you're always on. So you talk about customers thinking that you're always connected. When you have these things, like back in the 80s when my mom left work, she left work. It was done for the day. She clocked out and she was done. Now when you leave work, you are still accessible to everything when it comes to this. So the artificial intelligence and all these different things that are coming out, I think it's cool, and I do read articles on them, but I'm not consumed by it. I like simpler things now.
Well, I think I don't say bandwagon, but it's just the stuff you know is coming down the pipeline, and you just know what's going to happen.
Yep.
I'm not one that wants to like hold on to like we're like, I don't want to be the one like staying on the Titanic kind of thing.
Oh, no. Yeah,
where you
for
just
sure.
kinda, like,
Learn it.
Yeah, you learn it, and I think that I look at it more from the standpoint of like, is this going to help make my life more efficient?
Yes.
And I would need to do a better job at it, but there's certain things that come through the pipeline. Even the stuff I'm doing now, I'm like, is there a way, all this data input, is there a way that I can have some AI thing do it? Which I'm sure there can be, but then you have to, then it's the filtering out system. Like, yeah, but they don't have the knowledge of each person, how they relate. And I'm like, unfortunately, I have to do that. Like the actual like doing.
I just had to do it. I went 10,000 customers down to 1,000 main clients and got their, their equipment set up, stuff like that. Like there is just so much bad data out there, right? So the longer you have a business, the more bad data you get, in my opinion. Yeah. So you kind of have to do some manual work.
Well, we're purging that, but we're also, I call them like in limbo clients where, we've had clients and the database we had was 30 years old. We had we had all these people, and I think the earliest note I saw was like 95 or 96 in there, which I thought was funny. Well before I was in real estate, but going through a lot of them, there's so many things that we like. When I go through my database, I like the way that things are set up, like our CRM and stuff. Is like there always has to be a future task, no matter what.
Always,
because if there's not a future task, it means I call them in limbo, or they're just in, they're out in the abyss. You don't know where they are. You don't know what they're doing. And the problem is we have these people, and they're either they're still good leads or clients, but we have no way of following up with them because there's no way we can remember that, especially at scale. You can't do it. And I said, number two, if they're not good clients and they're just sitting in the database, then one of two things. One, they're just wasting space, and two, they're giving us bad numbers because if we're looking at, okay, we have 10,000 people, and you said, we really only have 1,000. So we're coming up with processes and systems to basically filter that down, but not filter it down where we just delete them. Filtering it down where we actually have a system to possibly try to pull them back in.
Put them in a different bucket.
They're in a bucket where, and this is where I kind of go back to like the technology and advancing and the efficiency models. We're coming up with systems where I have a mentor. He's in real estate. He's a good buddy of mine, but he talks about marketing to many, not one. So instead of individually going through these people and trying to individually go through them, knowing that there's probably a small percentage you're actually going to convert, how do I build out a system where I can do it like in the background where I'm not doing anything, and only the serious people are going to raise their hand. So if I have, say, 10,000 people that are doing it, maybe only 500 will raise their hand, but I built something out now through, going into the future, all those will be automatically done in the background, and the 500 that kick back out, now I just have to focus on 5, not, so now I've, what's that?
Exactly.
5% of whatever I was doing.
Yep.
So in my mind, it's going down through that and keeping that simple. But now, while that's going on in the background and I'm possibly saving those people, now I can have the one-on-one conversations with the people that are active. I'm looking at homes. I'm selling a home. I'm buying a home. I'm doing, or it's like, hey, I can do more business development, or I can do more events, or I can do more outreach on things that I want to do because all the back-end stuff that I was sitting there like mindlessly doing for hours is done.
Things that don't make sense to waste your time on.
Yeah, and it's just it's using, like you said, work
smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like keep it simple. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I look at where AI, I feel, could somehow do it. It's just the thing with AI, and they're getting to the point this probably will happen. It's almost like they have to study you or best practices.
They do.
Where it's like it's not Galen or it's not Alicia. It's something they would do.
Yes.
And that's the hard part because it's like your brain, like unless they can tap into your brain, which again, give.
They're never going to be us.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes in, where like the customer service aspect is people are like, oh, real estate agents are going to be non-existent. I think there's a chance that could happen, I don't think it's a high chance because there's the human, not the human element. There's the intangibles that you can't see on a screen. Like when people say price property, I'm just going to go on Zillow and look up the Zestimate. Like that's not accurate. Like and I can tell you why it's not accurate. And same thing if someone called you and said like, I got this, quote from this company versus your company, and it's like, okay, well, these apples to apples, and let's lay it all out. Because if you're looking at a top line number, that's totally different. Like, what are you getting? How are you getting it? What's the time? I mean, all the stuff that that goes in with that, and also, is that even the best thing for your needs? Like,
right.
And that stuff a lot of times is hard to do when you're punching in a computer. I mean, eventually they will have some type of emotion to it, but I feel like that I feel like I don't know. Like I said, unless they're like tapping into your actual brain, which again, Neuralink and all this stuff, they probably will be sooner or later. But I still think there's going to be a massive jump for that. I don't think that's.
I don't think humans can ever be fully replaced, for one thing, because some people really love that human interaction. I think about kind of like what you said, thinking about like, I see this commercial like Car Gurus, right? And they're like ordering a car online and then it gets dropped off like a vending machine in front of your house. That is just so weird. But I'm sure that there's people that will only ever shop that way.
Well, I mean, that's why I bought my last car.
Right. See?
Which I never thought I would, but then I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. But you don't test drive. There's like some weird things with it.
But a home is more intimate. Like, I feel like it's a little bit different. I do see where it would get some clients, but I don't think it would ever fully be replaced.
So during COVID, there was the, this was kind of, this was a good thing from that time period we got to learn from, is that we were shut down for like 10 weeks or so where we really couldn't go in homes. And what they said was, which was fine, we still managed to do some stuff, but it was, and things kind of, as,
life was so simple for a little bit.
3 different updates. Well, it was like 3 different updates a week on how it back and forth because nobody knew what was going on. But one of the things that when it first happened, every agent rushed out and was like doing videos and walkthrough tours. And this was me. During COVID, I did 0. I didn't do a walkthrough tour. I didn't do anything. I didn't do one prior to everything. Mm-hmm. And that became like the marketing ploy for a lot of agents. It was like, look at this. We got all these walkthrough tours. Well, which I think is fine. And there's a couple that even did like these 3D model shots of the home. Mm. And I said, it looks cool. The problem is a lot of that's like what I call smoke and mirrors of marketing, is that it's not every single person that during that time period that was interested in a home, this is what would happen. Be like, hey, Gail, and I'm really interested in that home. Like, great. Reach out to the agent, like, oh, I have this awesome walkthrough video that I'll send you about the house. Say, okay, fine. Send it over. Pass it along. Every single client I showed it to, they would watch the video and say, oh, looks like an awesome home. When can we go see it? Exactly. Can we get in? And no matter what I sent, no matter what was given to me, it always was followed by when can I go see the property? When can I go inside? And because there's a spatial awareness in real estate. Like, if you, like, just take this room that we're in. People will be like, oh, wow. I saw, like you said, I saw some people got a photo in here or whatever the case is, but you don't know how it looked. You don't know the size. You don't know if it's big, small, how it's laid out. And, I mean, this is just a small room that we're talking about here, but when you're talking about a house that you're looking to purchase, people want to walk in, and it's not just where can I put the sofa. You want to walk in and be like, wow, the bedroom's, smaller or bigger than I thought. Like,
those
I like
floors
the flow.
Look different than what it looked like on their picture.
But it's even, like the spatial awareness. Like, if you walk in, does it feel like a good space for you? And I don't know what feels good to you. Like, you might be like, this feels too tight, this feels too open, I don't like how this is over there. Maybe you have a weird thing about a kitchen being off of the living room or back.
Sure.
Like, some people are like, I don't want my bedroom being off of the kitchen. Some houses have that. But that was like a weird, a situation from it, and people always wanted to go in and actually look at the spatial awareness aspect. So we had a lot of that, and then anybody else that was like, hey, I'm going to sight unseen. I'm going to make an offer, sight unseen. Well, guess what? In real estate land, sight unseen, in my eyes, means that you never go see this property until you close on it. Mm-hmm. Making an offer sight unseen and then saying you want to come this weekend and look at it or come in during the home inspection, that's not sight unseen.
No, it's not.
And so we would get a lot of that where people are like, oh, my guy's going to just make an offer sight unseen. But he wants to come in next week, and he wants to come in during the home inspection, and there's an attorney approval. So, I mean, you have all these loopholes to get out.
It's a different thing.
So, so that's when I kind of go back to the idea of AI, and do I think that like certain things could get replaced, at least our industry? Absolutely. Do I think that we'll get to the point where we aren't doing business the way we do it now? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Do I think that people will still be involved in some sense? Absolutely. Do I think that instead of having 160, 70 agents in our market, we'll be down to 50? God, I hope so, because there's too many. But it's one of, but it kind of is like that aspect of it too. I think things will eventually shake out for the better, and it opens opportunity up too. Because if you're like, oh, it's going to replace my job, I look at it like if you're a resourceful enough person, you'll figure out a way to
insert yourself into this new situation. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like only focusing on the negative and cell phones, but think about actually how many amazing things have come out of that.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, just for example, like Facebook, when I can talk to a family member, or FaceTime or Facebook, really, we can talk to a family member on the West Coast anytime you want, or overseas, like We couldn't do that. We couldn't just look at a video and talk to them, you know.
Or even just video calls.
Video calls, the being efficient at work for that kind of stuff. I don't have to fly to California. I can do a video chat with this customer. Yeah,
Well,
so there's a lot of great things.
I mean, I know this sounds funny, but like, well, you talked about doing paper at Plattco originally. Like, same thing. When I was started in real estate, which really wasn't that long ago, we did everything handwritten. Like, I would write we had the contract, the template.
Sure, but you were
fill it
still,
in,
yeah.
And then you would scan it, or you fax it, which is dumb. But you did all this stuff back and forth, and I remember agents like would come and physically like stop in and hand me a contract.
Yes.
And then I would get it, and then I would call my person, and then if there was any changes, they would cross it out, initial it, and give it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're faxing this paperwork, and I'm like, once you fax it more than once, you can't read it. So
No,
which
you
was
can't.
Stupid.
It's all
We should have
blurb.
done it. But now we got to the point where it's like electronic signature. So I could be like, hey, you know, you can sign it tonight at 11 o'clock when you get done work. You're fine. If you're a CO and you want to sign it between shifts in the middle of the night, you can. And it's way quicker. And I think that everything is replaced, the efficiency of everything is replaced. So like you said, you're not having to get on a plane and fly out to California
Right.
and meet with someone. You can just do it on Zoom. And really, like sometimes people want to be in face-to-face depending on the conversation. But most things can be done over the phone or via now FaceTime.
Yeah.
It's like I could have this podcast, you sitting in your office doing it.
Right.
I do like the in-person aspect. It's better.
Absolutely.
I think it adds more to it. But if you really had to push come to shove, you could do it.
If your schedule just changes and that's the only way you can do it, you can still get it done. There is, like, I definitely get energy from people. I'm that person, like, I can't, like, I have a conference coming up in Dallas in April, and I'm excited because there'll be hundreds of people there. Like, I throw
Speaking
parties.
your language.
Yeah, and I throw parties all summer long just because I'm like, okay, well, I'm barbecuing because there's green grass this weekend. You know what I mean? And everybody's invited. Bring your own beer. Let's go.
And it's sunny.
That's right. So I have to have people.
Now, I was going to say, so when you're talking about like working on a team too, so when you do most of the hiring within that, you're like the sales department, or is
I do it all.
Okay.
Yep.
So like really this is like a team assembled by you. Obviously you have probably some people helping, but you have a lot of input on these people coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it messes up, it also, those are people that I picked.
Well, but so I read this thing recently because I want to start diving into some management stuff with you and leadership stuff. So I read this article, I think I saved it somewhere, but it was talking about like the battery of somebody. Meaning, do they add energy? Do they charge you up, or do they drain your battery?
It's a huge one.
And I find that I know this very well. Like, there's certain people in my life that certainly give me energy. Like, it's like Aaron Benner's like giving me.
Yes, like I want to hang out with Aaron Benner.
He's giving me a seaport of energy, and I'm charged in like 10 minutes.
Yep.
So. Fully charged, like off the rails charged. But then there's other people where you're like, like I
can't today.
Mentally, my mind is just going to go to mush having a conversation with them because they're just a draining person.
True.
They don't bring energy. They take energy.
They take it, and then by the end of it, I'm feeling like just an awful feeling.
Well, you're just like mentally exhausted.
Yeah, I
You're like,
can't.
I just had a half-hour conversation with that person or a meeting, and now I literally want to just go back to bed.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, do you assemble a team where you have Energizer bunnies kind of thing, or do or you're kind of like always trying to, I guess, polish your team and make? I've always heard the term like make your bench better, basically, like make sure you have a good squad on the team.
Yeah, so I definitely hire for attitude first. Skills are incredibly important, right? I mean, I can never discount how important it is to be great at the job that you're doing as far as skills go. But we talk about soft skills and all those different things. In my opinion, those things are incredibly important. I want a team that I want to be around, not a team I want to escape to at 5 o'clock. Or escape from at 5 o'clock, right? Because I'm like, oh my God, I just can't take this. I can't be at work today. I can't be around Susie or Scotty. I just can't. I don't want to be around people like that. So I definitely hire people that are fun to be around. I want them to have a personality, a sense of humor. I just, that are kind of like you. You kind of tend to hire people that are similar to your personality.
Yep.
I do that.
Yeah.
Because not that I want them to all be a bunch of Alicias. That's not what I want, but I definitely want them to be people that I want to have a conversation with. Makes my job a lot easier than if I'm like,
Well, I think it's too, if you beat to a certain drum kind of thing, and you get people that do it too, whether it's your way's right or wrong, it makes that's the most efficient way for you to work. So I think that's empowering you versus having someone that's at odds with you that may do it better than you, but they have to work with you.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think one of the things that over the last couple of years, kind of being thrust into that for me is I've realized what's I like and dislike. So now I'm a little bit more, when someone comes and meets with me about being an agent, or if we have to like hire someone or something, I have a little bit more of like what I want in a person. Yeah. Not necessarily like they seem like they could do the job, but it's like, are they like blowing
Are they going to drive
off?
me nuts all day, like in a bad way?
Yeah, and that's and I think when you like, I've kind of gotten to the point now that I've learned this recently, like I need that energizer person, because I'm the same thing. If you give me a bunch of people that are positive and upbeat, like I am a different person, and I feed off of energy. I can be very energetic, and then some people can see me and they're like, I could be very just like, ugh. But a lot of it is who I'm interacting with throughout the day, and I found that if like my next hire is going to be someone that I look at attitude first, like are they fun, bubbly, good personality, and they have like that proactive, I want to learn, I want to get better, I want to be...
I can teach you the other stuff.
Correct.
That's my job.
Yeah.
But I can't teach you to be a fun or good person.
or just like having the ambition to want to
the
better.
Positivity is huge. So my kids make fun of me about this, but you know, like how they always have like sayings like Hobby Lobby. That's me in a nutshell. Like all those signs that have all those positive messages. Oh. I even got a Cricut machine for Christmas because I just have to have all these great positive messages. I really do believe that if you fill your mind with positivity, it helps you get through all of that stuff. There are so many negative things that have happened in my life, but if I would have focused on that in a negative way, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I try to look at every situation positively, and I want those kind of people around me, because if you're a negative Nancy, I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't.
What so when you talk about like leadership, like let's go books. I like reading books, and you read books. Like what's some of your go-tos when it comes to leadership books?
Yeah, I mean pretty much anything Jack Welch.
Okay.
I follow Gary Vee. I will read anything from him. Like, so I fully believe in him. Tony Robbins. I love anything Tony Robbins. Really anything that focuses on people first. Honestly, I don't have any specific like author, but if it is a leadership book about building a great team, or how do you keep a great team, how do you be a better mother or wife or manager, all those things, I'm always trying to learn all of that stuff. So that's really what I'm always focusing on.
What's some of the like the three gentlemen you just mentioned? Like I'm a big Gary Vee guy. I met him.
Did you? Yeah, New Jersey, 2019. Yeah, he was in New Jersey. He did a seminar. It was the Shark Tank people were also there.
Okay.
So they did that, and then he came in at the end. He had his cell phone number on his chest. Like, he go ahead and text me, and that's how I got on his text stuff, because he does that for everybody. I'm sure it's automated.
Yeah.
But he'll just send random messages, right? It'll be like, "You're wonderful today, and think of one thing that you did great." Like, and I have the Gary Vee sneakers. Like, my shoes say positivity and optimism.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, so I started following him in May of 2011.
Oh wow, you're way before I was.
Well before. He had just come out with the Thank You Economy book.
Okay.
And I used to watch him religiously. I saw a keynote of him back in May of 2011. I'm like, I like this guy. Mm-hmm. He was the guy that got me into digital media. He got me into social media early on. He's the reason I ever met Aaron Benner, because I literally did a search. I'm like, is there anybody locally that does digital media?
I love that.
And then he came up. I've told Aaron that story before, and then I saw the photo of them with like the car and like, kind of busted.
Their marketing worked then.
It did. So I ended up I have all of his books. I've read all of his books. I used to watch the Ask Gary Vee show. I watched every episode of his vlog up to everyone, never missed one up until probably when he stopped doing them regularly, and he started to go to like the weekly V's, and then I think he does stuff now, but I haven't followed him as much just because I've been, I love a lot of the stuff he does. I took a slight hiatus when I had to kind of switch gears in my business, so with like less of what he was doing and had to go more into other things.
Into more of the deep business dive, financial stuff, all of that.
Different stuff, yeah. Sure, so my priorities were a little bit different. So I kind of was like, you know what? I can't put my time and effort into learning that, even though a lot of the stuff I've done is geared after him.
Yeah.
I was supposed to sit front row in Syracuse for a speech of his in April of 2020, which got canceled.
Yeah, of
then
course.
They moved it to September of 2020. I'm like, fine. I can do it. Well, then they ended up turning it into a virtual event. And I'm like, screw it. The only reason I would go to this is because I was front row.
Exactly.
I literally was like, me and two other buddies, we had the center front row of the stage. I probably
That would have been
like
amazing.
me to like the wall from him.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was buy his wine to get in. So it was like a case
That's
of wine
amazing.
at retail, which I bought.
Wow.
So instead of seeing him, I just drank it all during COVID. So it was good. It worked out nice.
Was his wine good?
I got the rosé one. It was actually
Okay.
decent. Yeah, you have to chill it, but it was good.
That's
It-
okay.
it
I
was-
like chilled wine.
Yeah, it was good. So what's something that out of those, you said him, Tony Robbins, Jack Welch, like, what's some of the similarities or the things that you take away that, because I find like every leadership thing gets really broken down and
Yeah.
you could probably put them in themes. So what's kind of the main things you gather from each of them?
Yeah, so Jack Welch is more business focused. Like, how do you create a better selling team?
He was GE, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of his side of things. Gary Vee is really just about stop being a dumbass and pay attention to your people and do the right thing all the time, no matter what it takes. I don't care if you have to drop $1 billion deal to make it right, do it. And Tony Robbins, I really relate to him a lot because he had a really rough life growing up, and he is one of those people that, kind of like what I had just said, focus on the positivity, and that's not easy for everybody to do. Believe me, I know that. I'm not oblivious to reality. I know that that's not an easy thing to do, but I think that's why I relate to him so much, is because even though he had a terrible upbringing and different things that have happened to him, that he just like can literally find the positivity in every situation. I don't know. Those are the kind of the key things that keep me going, whether that's my personal life or my work life. And by the way, I'm the same person no matter if you're going to catch me in my backyard with a Bud Light or my sixth Bud Light or in my work office. I'm still the same person. I'm still that easy to talk to. And honestly, I think that that's the way people need to be. Don't be a different person at work than you are in your personal life. I mean, and be HR appropriate, right?
Yeah.
But
I found I got a lot of that from Gary Vee too, because when I first got in the business, I was 20. I was in college, and I don't want to say I was intimidated, but I felt like I was now in like a grown up space, and I was so my first job ever, my only job prior. I'm not counting mowing lawns and coaching and stuff, and I substitute taught. So I guess if you add all those, but my real like actually showed up, got a paycheck like hourly. I served ice cream for like 7-8 years.
fun.
Since when I was a kid, like 14 up until I got into real estate. And so I've done ice cream sales and I've done real estate sales.
Wow.
So I've had a very boring work. My resume is very short. Like I had the worst resume to go show somebody. But but out of the two, I remember like going into real estate, and I was like, wow, I'm dealing with like numbers and attorneys and banks and other people. And the thing is, my dad had been in real estate since the 80s, still is, but he was in it for so long. So a lot of these people, like I knew of growing up, like I've heard their names. So now to like call an agent and be like, do I call him Mr. or Mrs.? Or
I know, it's so formal.
And I was 20, and I was like, call my friends' parents Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so.
Of course.
And I still have a hard time calling some of my childhood friends' parents.
They're still Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so.
Yeah. And so then you see these people that, and they're not, I mean, now I know them and they're peers to me, but like back then I was like nervous. So I remember I felt very stiff when I first started, because I felt I had to be like reserved, and I had to be like, make no mistakes.
The textbook.
You got to know what you're talking about. And then I got to the point, and I got this kind of from Gary, he's like, just be you. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have fun. I'm the same on the podcast. I don't do any prep for the podcast. I don't act any different way. I show up. I'm just
works out well.
Which is good. I mean, I shoot from the hip, and I say some good stuff, some really bad stuff, and whatever. It's all there, and I don't care. But it's like all the, anything I do on social media. I mean, that's me. Same like you said. If I'm going out and partying with my friends, or if I'm working, like I have a different mindset because I'm like focusing on different things, but I'm the same person. I'm not like putting on a front when I'm with clients.
Not at all.
And I like to have fun and joke around, and I find being looser work-wise makes, like I feel like I don't work in a good way.
Exactly.
Meaning, like Monday, I don't dread Mondays, and I don't look forward to Fridays or Saturdays.
Right, like I don't live for Friday at 5.
No.
I don't.
And part of it is like, which is crazy, and I'm just looking at it now, like, I know this, people are like, oh, like we're almost done Tuesday. So tomorrow's Wednesday, which means we're already almost back to the weekend.
Yeah.
Which in my mind, it's like I'm not even focusing on what day it is, because today it's going to be Friday, and I'm going to be like, where the heck did this week go?
Yeah.
Like we're already Friday evening, which is great because I spend a lot of time with my family. But so I think for Gary, that was the main thing I always got from him, was like, you, like,
if you're living for the weekend, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
And I find there's stuff like I find stuff in my business, like I told you, like the clients, like they don't stop calling at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Right.
So there's things in my business I dislike. So it's like, okay, can I work on doing stuff where maybe I stop that? Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe I find systems or ways I can get around it. Do you have that too? Stuff in your business that, maybe not that, because at 5 you can kind of shut it off, but stuff even during the week you're like, man, I hate having these conversations, or I hate going to this thing, or I hate having to do this task. Is there a way that I can manipulate it where I really do have like the perfect schedule?
Yeah.
Or do you feel you have that right now?
I wish I did. I mean, I don't feel like if you're in any kind of management position, you ever get to fully turn off. My life currently is so much more balanced than it ever was in my 20s and even in my 30s, because that retail world never closed. So that store was open 7 days a week, and it never, it just never shut off. It felt like, or when it did, it was like, okay, now I go to bed. Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Whereas now with Plattco, it is a Monday through Friday company at its core. Yes, we do some field service work on the weekends because that's when a client is shut down, or there might be a couple things after hours because I have customers all over the world, and so do some of my sales team. But for the most part, I have a lot of work-life balance. My CEO is not saying, Alicia, I need you to work on the weekends. There are times where I bring my laptop home on the weekends because there's things that I really want to get done that are going to make my life easier. And my husband may be doing something else for himself, and then my kids have plans. So then I don't feel guilty. But if they don't have any plans and they're looking forward to seeing me for the weekend, I'm not bringing my laptop home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of a balance. It's what's important. Or there's times where I'm like, well, that's going to be late, and I'm going to communicate to that to my boss that I need a 1-week extension for this project. And I'm going to literally go have fun with friends and family all weekend.
Yeah.
It's just all about balance and what you can and can't do and put off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's good. And I'm learning it. Like I said, I'm in my
how old are you?
33.
So you still got a bit, right?
Yeah.
Because you're still figuring that out. Your kids are still little. Like, I have a daughter who's in 11th grade. She's going to prom this year. And within 1 month, both my daughter's birthdays, I have my grandbaby being born, I have a baby shower, I have prom, and I have travel for work. And that is in like 3 weeks. All in like this April 20th to May 10th time frame. So you kind of just, I don't know. You just kind of learn what's really important, and you learn how to balance that stuff. And you're still at that age where you're still figuring out. Your kids are still little.
Well, I've always been ambitious. I was ambitious in my 20s, and I had the thing with my 20s. I had like goals I wanted to hit that were very individual goals because it was just me.
Yep.
And I mean, I met my wife when I was like 24, I think.
Yep.
But my wife is very independent. She's not a very needy person.
Sure. Which is great.
Which is awesome. Like, we get along so well. I have such a good relationship with her, but we make time for each other, but we also make time to do our own thing.
Yeah.
And we're not
nothing wrong with that.
Yes. And so I was always very ambitious. And then when you have kids when they're young, like when you have an infant, like, spend a lot of time with them, but they're not that needy when they're young. I mean, they are, but they aren't. You know,
they're actually almost more needy when they're teenagers.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm saying, like, a baby, like, yeah, she needed to rock them and change them and all this stuff, but they're not like asking to go places. They're not like talking back. They're not walking around. Like, they're sleeping or hanging out or whatever. So I was still very ambitious, and then as I started getting more kids, I realized, like, okay, I gotta pause. Look at my life. I'm in a different season of my life right now. I got young kids. My wife's she's going back for her master's right now. We have some other stuff that's like making certain ambitious goals have to take a back seat. Not that they won't happen, not that I won't attempt them, but they have to just, I got to prioritize them.
And they change.
And they change. Yes. And I find that I've gotten way better in the last year and a half. I'd say probably like 15 months. Of really kind of like self-reflecting and figuring out what's most important right now, and being fine with not maxing out my professional side. Sure. Because I don't want it to affect my personal side and or just make me self-implode because of just like burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. It's difficult because you go from like go 100% on the professional side to like, now I got to like not go 100% personal because you got to find a balance, but like now I got to really swing, turn the steering wheel the opposite way and be fine with that, which basically means you have to retrain your brain on how to act. So I've gotten to a point, like I think you just said, your balance is better. My balance is the best it's ever been.
Which is wonderful.
Which is good. And it's like anything else. I have a long way to go.
But it's never going to end, right?
No.
Because I'm going to be 80 and I'm going to still be trying to balance my great-grandkids.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, my house is
still
filled with
want
50
to party
kids.
and
Yeah.
they still want,
And grandma's going to do that. You know?
Yeah, but I think it's you tweak all these little things now, and I think, like, I'm sure, is there stuff that you pull away from Plattco that you attribute or you bring into your life, like your personal life, different like not like you're managing your kids, like you're managing your
No.
but I'm saying, like, what you deal with people, maybe you're like, hey, I got to be more empathetic with, you know, Tom, Bobby, and Susie or whatever at the company, and now I go home and my husband and my kids are, you know, maybe I would get mad at my daughter for something, but now I'm going to be a little more empathetic because she's
It's perfect.
17
yeah.
and she's going through some stuff, and I you know.
Yeah, so you have to really remind yourself sometimes. So there's been times where, you know, that's not, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. That is real because sometimes you put in more effort into your career than you do your own family, and that's where you really need to look in the mirror and be like, okay, I would have never have snapped at somebody on my team like that, but I just yelled at my daughter because she asked me a question about something. That's ridiculous, right? And so that is the part that I'm constantly still reflecting on, because sometimes work takes so much energy out of you that then when you get home, I'm like, I just don't want to hear anything. Like, I just want it to be quiet. I need a longer ride home sometimes. Sometimes I'll take a different route because it only takes me 10 minutes to get home. And I'm like, I'm going to go up Route 3 and then I'm going to go down the turnpike and then I'm going to, you know.
I guess when you, how much, I guess, do you think your battery's, like, full when you get home? Like, if you start the day at 100.
Yeah.
Let's just say every day, perfect world, you start the day at 100. When you, like, clock out and drive home, how much time on average do you think, or how much battery life do you think you have when you, like, walk through the door?
It really depends on the day, but I'd say an average day, maybe about 25%. So
Okay.
I'm up at 4 a.m. 3 days a week I go to the gym. It's not enough, I know, but 3 days a week I go to the
Better
gym.
than none, yeah.
And then those other days, I actually take that time in the morning to kind of just do some online shopping, sometimes retail therapy, all of that. But if I start my day at 4 a.m. and I have a full bore day, like it's full of meetings and I have 10,000 things to do for work, and then I've got to stop in the middle of my day to run to my daughter to an orthodontist appointment or whatever these things end up happening. By the time I get home and my husband and I cook dinner, honestly, by 8 o'clock, I am so tired and I could just lay down and go right to sleep. And sometimes I just do. People make fun of me because they're like, oh, lady, you're in bed by 8 o'clock.
So you
I
get
don't
my
care.
text message at 8:05?
Yeah, I'm exhausted and I want to sleep because that is actually so happy. Last week, my husband and I crawled into bed. I think it was 7:30. This is terrible.
That sounds amazing, by the
It
way.
was, and I went and I'm
That
like,
doesn't happen with me, but that sounds amazing.
I was like, I am so happy. He's like, about what? I'm like, because we're going to sleep. And I was just so tired.
You're getting your
and
8
I've been,
hours in.
And I've been with my husband for 24 years, by
Yeah.
the way. I was 17 when I met him. So he's like, yeah, we're exhausted. Life is just busy.
I like that. I feel like 25% is probably
It's probably
the
about right.
norm for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you, this was something that I've been trying to get better at over the last year. Do you have any, like, white space in your calendar? White space meaning, like, not structured.
Yes, for sure. I cannot do like looking at your calendar gives me a little bit of anxiety because you even have, and I work with somebody who in particular, as soon as I saw your calendar, I thought of somebody on my team, and he's incredible. Listen, his calendar looks just like this, and I'm like, I can't. Like, I would take this lunch out of there. I would take that morning block that you have for like I just wouldn't want to see it, right? I would just know it. But not everybody's brain works that way.
Yeah.
When I look at this, I'm like, no, I can't.
You can see that I'm very, like, anal with my time, but
But that works for you.
Yeah, I think, like, most of the stuff, I have a system that works for me. So the reason, like, these two things are right here. So this is, so one of the things I've really tried to get better at, because I fell off the wagon, is I wanted to start prioritizing my health more than I was, because I used to be really good at it with kids and work and life. Give me any excuse I could say, I basically just pushed that behind.
Sure.
So I was like, I got to get better at that. So the reason I have lunch, so that's meditation and lunch. I did meditation a lot last year. I stopped doing it for a bit. I'm trying to get back into it because I recognize the difference when I do it and I don't do it. So I try to do it in the middle of the day. I missed it today just because someone dropped. It's fine. It is what it is. You know, you roll with the punches. But I put lunch in because I have a tendency to just skip lunch. I have a tendency to get to the office, work all day, and all of a sudden it's 4 o'clock. I'm like, I haven't ate today.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So
I don't want to do that.
So I put in lunch because it's for me. It's like no, take the time to sit, pause, and eat. And so like when I say lunch, like that hour is a very unstructured time. So like when I'm eating lunch, I might pull up a video on YouTube and watch it, and I'm usually like something I want to watch. It could be a podcast, could be a keynote. I just listen to it as I'm eating, and it doesn't take me an hour to do that. I just know if something runs a little bit long or starts, I have about an hour to get that stuff done. Most of the other stuff, like this is just calling back people in my database, but that used to be more time, but I'm trying to get to the point where those reactive things are smaller. I do a couple of them because I want to do my big projects. Yeah. And this time right here, I'm just blocking out, like that was today. Perfect example, like tomorrow I have 3 hours that I'm just sitting there and I'm just doing that. And this is just a task that this is almost very white space. Like, I can sit there for 3 hours, just go at it nonstop. I might work for a couple hours, maybe even an hour, get up, go talk to Jen about something, go to the bathroom, come back, have a cup of coffee, like drink coffee, just like stretch out and then do it again. So this to me doesn't look like a whole lot going on. And this is like St. Patrick's Day handout cards, things we're doing Thursday. That's a very unstructured day. We're getting a card drop, going and seeing a bunch of people and dropping cards off.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then like, white face, like very unstructured. So it looks structured because I have things on there, but I really don't have a lot. My structure's like red with people, and I try not to. I used to have like 4, 5, 6 appointments a day, and I was running around. I think I'll probably get back to that point, and again, a different stage of my season of my life, which I think will be later this year. But I had to really simplify my schedule to get those main pillars done. So when I look at this, it's very much like. It's almost like this is a very like bare bones schedule.
Wow. Okay.
And I've cut a lot of stuff out because I didn't want to run around like I'm not going to go to this. I know I won't. I haven't gone to that in almost a year. I think that's great. I think I should be going to those networking events. I look at it as it's not a big priority for my life right this second. Sure. I want to go home, spend time with the family because that whole day I'm probably going to be tired from like this takes a lot out of me, even though it doesn't look like much. It's just your focus on a task.
The brain is like constantly working on a task. No, I get it.
So but I guess like white space, like if you looked at your calendar, like when you say you have meetings and you have things going on, like how much of your day is structured and how much is unstructured?
So it's weird. So at Plattco, I'd say about 50% of it is structured. And then the other 50% is what are you going to do with it? And that's where you really make your priorities. Are you going to focus on your team? Are you going to try to do the tasks that you do? And by the way, I don't, 90% of the time, maybe even more like 95%, I'm not directly dealing with our customers at this point. So that took a lot off my plate. So now it's more of the process improvement, the focus on the team, the company improvement now. So there's 4 of us that run Plattco and really focusing on that kind of stuff. So I keep a lot of that white space too because I never know what's going to pop up in this day. It could be a huge fire drill. And also I do want to be there for my team if something does pop up with a customer. So in my personal life, when it comes to free time, I do have some things scheduled, but for the most part, I like to leave it up to chance, see what's going to happen. I like surprises, whereas it's so funny because my husband and my daughter, my younger daughter, has to know, like, what are we doing? When are we going to be there? What's going to happen? Who's going to be there? Like, and my mind just doesn't work that way. I've learned to obviously adapt. That's my family. But that's why I don't operate like this because I kind of do that with them as much as possible.
Business, I'm more like that. Personal, I'm a little bit more
like free.
Now, if my wife was here, she'd probably be like, "Oh my god!" But I feel like I am more easygoing on weekends. I hate being late, so like I will get stressed out if I'm trying to get people like we got to get there for X time and we're dragging our feet.
I don't like to be late. Like just thinking, I forgot that your building wasn't there anymore in the train station. It was here. Early. I know, but I like to be like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's all good. But so like that. But like on weekends, like you'll see, like my weekends, I just have family,
which is wonderful.
And but I don't have anything really planned.
Whatever's going to happen.
My wife might say like, "Hey, we got this thing going on Saturday." I won't put it in my calendar. I very rarely will put it in the calendar unless it's like go drop them off somewhere, so I know like not to forget it.
Yeah.
But if it's like, "Hey, we're doing something this afternoon and this evening," I'm like, fine, whenever. Yeah. After naps, great. Yeah. So I find that having the 5 days in the week and really 4 days during the week because Friday is a very much a flex day for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I keep Friday as like that day between work and like kids and family, where it's like if I want to go skiing or if I want to, Friday's like the day if I want to play hooky, I can.
You could.
Again, it's like my day to like recharge and kind of have an off day. And I'm still doing a little bit of work. I'm still obviously doing stuff with the family, but it allows me to put like a hobby, interest, like very white space day in. I love rolling in on Fridays, and if I wasn't doing the breakfast and skiing that day, there's days I walk in and it is literally a complete free day, and I'm like, I got a couple tasks to take care of, I got a couple things to clean up. I might just go sit on the couch and you know, shoot the shit with Jen up front about a couple things, and it has nothing to do with work. It's just like, hey, the end of the week, and I have a couple things going on, and it's great, and I don't feel rushed, and I just feel very relaxed.
It is, and then you're not so high strung going into the weekend for your family, which is super important. What is your take? So, something I've been really trying to work on at Plattco is trying to get everybody that's on kind of like the decision making, understanding work from home, and so how I feel like that's a good flex. So. Currently, we're Monday through Thursday manufacturing, which means that they're only there Monday through Thursday.
Yep.
Administration is there Monday through Friday. So my thought was to hire great people and to be able to keep them, to have a little bit of flexibility with that work from home, because I can get a lot more done when I work from home. So working our regular schedule Monday through Thursday, but every Friday having a work from home, because there's only like 10 of us there. What is your take on work from home?
I have no problem. I think one of our girls is working from home today. I think as long as I feel two ways. One, you can come to the office. Case in point, I had someone drop in today. Was here probably for 45 minutes. Completely derailed my morning. Totally fine. Roll with the punch. I like the person. You know, it is what it is. I just didn't get what I planned done, but I made, made adjustments. And in my head, I was like, it would have been better to sit at my house today and just go through and not see anybody. I mean, granted, we had this in the afternoon. Sure. We had some other stuff, but that's why sometimes Friday for me is tough, because I come in with nothing, but I also find that Fridays is the day that people just kind of pop in. So,
yes.
So really some Fridays, like I like coming here and having my desk and having a printer and having the internet and not having, my youngest still stays home so with my wife. So there is a level of, it's easier here,
sure.
But I also have the distraction. Like I can avoid my wife and kid at my house a little easier than I can avoid someone popping in and talking
Absolutely.
to me. So now, I would say from a work from home perspective, I don't, like the person from our office is working at home today. I don't expect them to work as long as they would work here hour-wise. My hope is that they're doing the same amount of work, and like Parkinson's law, like, if you have 8 hours here to fill, you'll fill it. If you go home and you're like, the kids are home today, or I have some stuff I want to get done, you'll somehow miraculously take that 8 hours and get it done in 3. Yeah. And it's just the way that we work as humans. And during COVID, I was great. Like I went for a walk every day with my kids, like middle of the afternoon.
Which is great. I
had breakfast with them every day. I had breakfast with them. I had lunch with them, and we went for a walk every afternoon of COVID. And I worked for about probably 3 hours in the morning and about an hour and a half, 2 hours tops in the afternoon. And I got done everything I needed to get done. Yeah. And I was just like, get it done, go hang out. So personally, I think work from home is fine as long as people are getting their tasks done. I'm not an hourly person. I hate, I don't care if someone works 40 hours in a week. Some weeks you'll work 30, some weeks you'll work 60. Yeah. I said, it's just whatever time period you're in, that's how I live my life. If I have a task that takes longer, I'll put the time in. If I have a task that I got done and I have some free time, you know what, I'm going to go golfing or skiing or go home early or whatever the case might be. And I think that if people look at more being task-oriented than time-oriented, I don't think work from home is a big deal. Personally, I think the 4-hour work week versus a 7-day work week makes more sense.
I know.
I don't think people, I mean, you see like some colleges going to 4-day work weeks. I don't know how it is around the world if countries take off Fridays. I did hear the other day, because talking about like time off and things like that, they said that, our normal 40-hour work week and typical American style work week was based on of like the industrial, back in like the early 1900s.
When women stayed home, raised their families. And
you had like the assembly lines and you had the factories and stuff. And they said that most countries around the world don't work that hard. No. And in the United States, we work way longer. We grind out too much and we burn out too much because we're just like work. And I've tried to get to the point where I'm not working as much. And that's why with the efficiency model comes in. I have worked crazy hours.
Of course.
But I think I needed to do that to get in a position to learn from it. And then also, and a little bit, like I had to get like some social currency, some financial currency, some things where it allowed me to make some different changes.
Absolutely.
Friday, though, I think if everybody went to a 4-day work week, we'd be fine.
That is my opinion for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you need to work Fridays.
Yeah, I think Fridays you can get done in 4 days, which you could get done in 5. Mm-hmm. You really could. And also, if you still do the 5-day work weeks and you get to pick one of those days to work from home, like for example, like a Friday, I am going to get a ton of stuff done on that Friday, more than I would get if I was in the office. So one thing that is a discussion, like a debate about, is that kind of like what you said, where people are only going to give those same amount of tasks that they would have given in 8 hours. But who cares? The job is still getting done, is my take on that.
I also think, like, because some people go, like, 4-day weeks, but then they work 10 hours a day.
Right.
Versus 8. So then you go from 32 hours up to 40 hours. You extend up to the 40 hours. So you're still doing the same amount of work. And you see this with, like, nurses and COs that they do 12, or nurses especially, because they do 12 hours.
Yep.
The way, again, you go back to Parkinson's law, which states that you'll fill the time that's given to you to complete a task. If you say a task and say, hey, Alicia, you have an hour to do this, or you have 3 hours, you're going to get the work done on both scenarios. It's just going to take you 3 times as long in the 3-hour one because you have that time. So I think that most people, if you said Monday through Thursday, you're going to get rid of just the idle chit-chat. You're going to get rid of just kind of the time-wasting things. You're going to get rid of
nonsense meetings
because you need to have the time to get your projects done and your tasks done. And I think personally, if people really said, hey, I got 8 hours of work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to get done that time because they have something to look forward to on Fridays. I think also because if you have a Friday off and you have a full Saturday and a full Sunday, you in theory have, you have a 50% longer weekend, but you can do those long trips, you can do those like vacations, you can do those random things, you get those side projects done around the house and not feel like you're missing out. And I feel like, and this, again, I'm going to go back to when I was serving ice cream. I remember looking outside. I think I was 20 at the time. I remember looking out. It was sunny out. A friend just came up, got ice cream. We're going off to something. I had a family party that night. I was missing all this because I was at this place. I used to work from, I think, like 1 to 9 or 1 to 9:30, something like that.
Same here.
And I remember like looking out, and it was sunny. And in my head, I started calculating. I'm like, okay, I'm here for 8.5 hours. How much of that 8.5 hours am I actually working? And I said, not like just sitting there waiting for client or customers to come up, not like physically, like stocking stuff, making cones, doing just actual physical work. I think I calculated on average, I was probably working 3 to 4 hours max, tops. Most of the time, definitely over half the time, I was sitting. I was sitting waiting for people to drive in. I was sitting for people to walk. I was sitting for people just to get out of their car and come to the window. And then I thought in my head, I'm like, if I could just show up at 1 every day and just bust through all my work and go home between 4 and 5, do the same amount of work, get paid the same amount, but then I have my whole weekend free. That's why I went into real estate, because I got paid like that, and I still get paid like that. So I think that if people had the mindset, like, you're still going to get paid, you're still going to get everything done, you're just going to have to do it in a quicker block of time, you'll be fine. And I heard this analogy. And people said, treat every day like it's the last day before vacation. Because it said the day before vacation, guess what you do? You say every single thing that hey, do you mind doing this? Hey, can you grab coffee? Hey, can you have this meeting? Like, I can't go on vacation tomorrow. I got to get this stuff all done.
Exactly.
Guess what? You get through all your priorities. You're done. You go on vacation. You're great. Most of us don't do that normally.
Yeah.
And guess when? People will do it. I'm sure, like, for you, Friday, if you're taking a half day, you're probably going to grind a little more over the next 2 days, so Friday's free.
Everything will be done.
Yeah.
I wish everything would be done.
But like the priority stuff you'll let a couple things slide that aren't priorities, and that's something I've gotten better at doing. But I think, I really think I would love it in our industry if like everybody shut down on Friday.
It would be incredible. And honestly, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but the way that our family dynamics are, right? They're so complicated right now, and it feels like everybody's just so busy and you don't have time to sit down and have dinner at night and all these things. I feel like if you had those 3-day weekends, you would have more family time and families would be able to build those bonds a little bit better. I don't know.
I think the trend, I think eventually we'll get to that point, and I think it will become a social norm. That if you're working on Fridays, that's going to be like the oddity kind of everybody. Yeah. And unfortunately, our business is kind of like on call. So like Fridays, I can't. But like, I don't care honestly, if the staff were here on Friday.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want them here, not that I don't think they can get work done, but I'm like, if you can get all your work done before Friday, take Friday off. I really don't care as long as we're hitting our tasks. Like, we're getting to Friday, I'm like, you still haven't gotten this stuff done. That's a problem.
That's a whole different
But
scenario.
it's not a problem because of, that's more of a problem of, like, you're not using your time properly.
Yep.
It's not like you have too much on your plate. Yeah, I personally would drop it. I think the only time that working on Friday would make sense is depending on your scheduling of shipping or scheduling of creating stuff.
Yep.
I also think if like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you said we now have to work 10 hours to make up for Friday versus the 8, the only reason I would say to have those extra 2 hours is if that extra 2 hours was actually getting work done.
Yep.
And certain roles have that, meaning if you're like maybe in production,
They work 4/10s.
Okay, so maybe 4/10s. But if that 2 hours is just time that they can do more stuff, and I'm going to say more stuff, meaning like it's not very, it's more like physically you have to do it. It's not like mentally you have to do it. If you know what I mean? Like you have to like piece stuff together.
Assemble more things.
You have to assemble stuff, but they understand how to do it. They're not learning how to do it. They can just do it. And like, well, if we have 2 hours every single day, we now make X amount more throughout the year. Absolutely, that makes sense. If it's like a position you're in, I think a position I'm in, it's like, well, if I work 8 hours or 10 hours, and those 2 extra hours for those 4 days is going to be something where I'm thinking or studying or researching, and it's more mental capacity.
Yeah.
It's probably not even beneficial.
Probably not, because it's just mentally exhausting at that point, because you can only fit so much of that in a day.
And you're not creating anything in that 2 hour time block, because like we work on stuff when you put in your brain to like come up with systems and processes. You're not doing one for one. You're doing one to save $500,000 a year.
Sure.
Like you're making these bigger I guess not risk rewards, but bigger payoffs.
Yeah.
Versus like it's kind of like mowing lawn. Like if I went out and mowed lawn and you said I only worked 8 hours a day, but if I worked 2 more hours a day, I could do 2 more lawns.
Exactly.
Now I can do 8 more lawns a week, and now over the year, how much is that? Then I would say it makes sense to do the 10 hours, you know. But if you're like, well, I don't know, the extra 2 hours, I'm just going to put more time to doing this project. That's different.
That is. Yeah.
So I don't know, but I do think we're not far away from Fridays probably just getting off. I would think that I could see like banks. You know, like banks work Monday through Friday and have like a half day Saturday.
Yeah.
I could see that half day shifts to a Friday, and they work 4 days, and they take out one full day and just slide it up. So then bankers have 2.5 weeks. And I don't think it's socially unacceptable to have Friday be like a Saturday where you could work till noon.
Yeah.
Depending on certain industries, like maybe your car shop's open on Saturdays because people can't get in during the week, and they have that flex day. But then they also don't have a week and a half or a day and a half of a weekend. They have 2.5 days, which is massive.
Exactly.
I think it should go to that. I mean, if I had my
if we ruled the world,
yes, I would. I mean, if I ruled the real estate industry, I would probably say, listen, everything's being done Monday through Thursday. It can be. It can be. There's no issue. It doesn't have to be extended. If last thing I'm going to ask you before we let you plug everything about Plattco, give me one book that you recommend.
Oh, goodness.
No topics off limits. I mean, it can be leadership. I don't think you have to like pick that managing style, but it can be.
Oh, God. So a personal book, I actually love, there's a book called Flowers in the Attic. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It's not a leadership book in any way.
Okay.
It's more for
is that better?
Entertainment.
Should I read that more than if I was to read
Probably not. I'm not sure you would enjoy it.
Okay.
But
what would be, I mean, is that the book? If you're saying, if I had to gift you one book right now.
Oh, if I had to gift you a book?
Like I'm saying, like, this is a book that I think you should read that's going to be, you're going to find either interesting, beneficial, or whatever.
Which you
if you
probably
think reading
already
that
read.
book would, like, make me feel great about reading that book, I will add it to my list. If not, then
The Challenger Sale. Not sure if you ever read that one. So now I'm trying to get more into the books of big financial decisions and not so much leadership.
So is this the book right here?
Yep.
Okay. So this would be your one if you had
That would be a pretty good one.
Okay.
When it comes to like, I call it like big girl panty learning, right? So it's like, okay, now I'm moving on to these different steps.
A little deeper.
A little deeper into the financial and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So it's on there.
There you go. God, I wish I would have been a little bit more prepared for that. I've got a whole shelf of awesome books that I haven't even read yet.
But now it's off. But now it's off the cuff. So
Perfect.
like this is good.
Yeah.
My thing for you is the one thing.
The one thing. I'm going to write that in my notes because I didn't bring a notepad. The one thing.
Yes. I think You might hate it. I don't care. Read it.
I doubt it.
You'll
sure if
love
you
it.
recommend
It's all about basically prioritizing and executing on tasks and stuff. And I think honestly, in your role and based on how everything you just brought out, it would speak a lot to you. And there's good resources that go along with it. That if you like the book, and you're like, tell me more, I can give you more stuff that I think would go with it.
Yeah,
I think it would be good.
Awesome.
Okay, so if people want to find you, help out, learn more, all the good stuff about yourself or Plattco, where do they go? Yeah,
so I'm definitely on LinkedIn. You can find me on the Plattco Corporation page as a sales manager. YouTube is a huge thing for Plattco. So if you search Plattco on YouTube, there's a video for every product, all kinds of people.
There you go.
Yep. That picture makes me laugh because when I smile, I crunch my nose, and I was like,
it's probably because Chris was saying a bad joke too.
Yeah, he was definitely making me laugh that day. And I mean, Plattco is a wonderful place to work. It's really big into the community. We are actually doing a lot of things for the YMCA. Huge donation from Plattco. That's a big part of what we believe in. We do a lot of community things, clean up community activities, things like that. And honestly, a lot of people don't know about it, but that little nugget back there in White Street has been there for 127 years, and it is the original foundry.
Which is crazy because if nobody's ever been back there, you would never know it's back there.
Yeah, it's a whole campus.
It's a weird, it's like set off. It's just like a weird spot within a bunch of houses, and it's it's a very strange, not in a bad way. It's just it catches you off guard.
Yeah.
You don't expect it to be there.
Yeah. We're trying to set up almost like a museum. So currently, we actually are trying to set up a timeline. I can look at these incredible old books at Plattco. They're like handwritten payroll from like the 1930s. And like, there's just all this incredible history in there. Like I smell the books and I'm like, oh my God.
No, I know. Plattco,
that's my team.
Plattco too has a lot of I'm from Shazy, so there's a lot of Shazy people that work at Plattco.
Of Shazy people,
and a lot of good people. That's the sales team.
Yep, that's most of the sales team. One person's missing, Matt. He lives in Ohio, but that's Amy and Ashley. Ashley, actually, the pregnant girl there. She's coming back to work on April 3rd, and I'm so excited to have her back.
Yeah, I know her. A lot of these I actually know both of them by face.
Yeah, so Amy and I met at AT&T. So Amy was part of my sales team at AT&T. I brought her into there.
I definitely worked with her at one point. I'm like, that girl looks really familiar.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, like small world, but like I said, a lot of good things about Plattco. I think
that's the training program. So there's never really been a training program at Plattco, and now I'm working with Dean Supernaut, who's been there almost 40 years. This gentleman here, and creating a training program for the first time at Plattco to stop just being like tribal knowledge, and let's actually get some stuff on paper and make some training documents.
He's a good dude too.
Yeah.
Joey.
Oh yeah, Joey. He's now on my team as well. Yep.
Yeah. So
he was part of manufacturing, and I'm like, you want to come do sales? And yep, he's on there now.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Alicia, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
this was
absolutely.
Fun.
This was fun.
I definitely took some knowledge away from you. So
same here. I mean, this was great.
Perfect. Well, that's it. Episode 222. I'm going to say that. It's better than 222. So, or not 222. Yeah, 222. But episode 222, the Galen Trombley Show. We're out. Thank you for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on all social platforms at Galen Trombley. Thanks for listening.